bold journalism.
But Drew Hernandez is a strong-minded individual.
Exposing lawlessness.
Drew Hernandez, who is ideological.
Finding the truth.
And use the word Antifa.
This is what they do.
Battling
They're
mainstream
liars. The woke mob, all they can do is lie.
These are the front lines.
Welcome to this special episode of Frontlines. My name is Drew Hernandez. We've got another great show for you today. Tpusa fam, Lily Standley back for part 2. This time we're talking about the latest level of the Great Reset, food shortages and the fall of the United States economy. Speaking of shortages, make sure you're prepared. Stock up on 100% American meat with Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers delivers steakhouse quality beef, chicken, and seafood right to your door. And with our code TPUSA, you can get absolutely delicious food and donate $50 to our mission. Good Ranchers keeps their supply chain transparent every step of the way, so you know exactly where your meat is coming from. Head on over to goodranchers.com/TPUSA today to solve your meat problem and donate to us. Now is the time to support American farms and ranches and our mission to further the conservative movement. Help make what we do here at Turning Point possible with one small purchase. Tell whoever buys the meat in your house to go to goodranchers.com/TPUSA and get your box today. And also, Frontlines is now on Apple and Spotify podcasts and other streaming services. Make sure to leave a 5-star review right now. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, smash the like button, hit the bell notification, and share this video everywhere. If you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, please reshare this transmission right now. We need you guys to get the word out, so please do it. My name is Drew Hernandez, and you are now on the front lines. The fall of the economy is here. You're starting to watch inflation rise. You're starting to watch gas prices rise. And you're starting to watch the current federal government not care. And here is a video of the CEO of Goya literally telling you to your face that food shortages are on the way.
We are on the precipice of a global food crisis. In the Ukraine, between the Ukraine and Russia, they represent 50% of the world's production of fertilizer. What Russia's doing with their land bridge, they're also cutting off the Ukraine to the sea. They basically landlock the Ukraine and they can't export. They can't either plant. Right now we're in the planting season in southeast Ukraine where all these products are grown. They've attacked irrigation systems. They've attacked train systems.
Goodness gracious. Well, the Daily Wire gives us a nice article about the gas prices going up 80% since Biden took office. And they gave us a nice little intro from Trevor Noah, who poked fun at Biden. He said, you know, honestly, if you didn't come here tonight, I would have understood. I don't get what people are so upset about. I don't really know. Ever since you come into office, things are really looking up. You know, gas prices are up, rent is up, food is up. He started to laugh. Hey, at least he's got some integrity there.
But that's the thing is, like, these people literally just laugh at you. And if you guys think we're lying, here's literally the clip of these people laughing at your suffering because of the rise of inflation and gas prices.
You know, I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. You know, gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything. No, it really has been a tough first year for you, Mr. President. And sure.
Man, we really are the plebeians, aren't we?
There it is. It's just, yes, you guys are all suffering. Oh, you poor peons, you poor peasants and poor people. Oh, I know it's so hard for you to put in gas into your car. Oh, just buy an EV. Oh, that's too expensive. Oh, who cares? You and your family are just gonna die. You can't afford groceries. Oh, what a shame. More WIC for you, more food stamps for you. We just want you on the federal. Do you see how that works?
Yeah, just drink a margarita. You'll figure it out. I mean, it's embarrassing, it's terrible, but nothing's new from the left or the elite. This is how they roll. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be the elite, right? They have to be above everybody else and not feel the pain and the struggles of the middle class. And it's incredibly insensitive. And I'm just blown away by the level of care and empathy and sorrow they feel when talking about every other foreign country, Ukraine, what's happening over here, over there. You know, people in China can't eat. Guess what? Americans can't eat. Your neighbors can't eat. Your neighbors can't buy gas to go to their job. It's terrible. It's nothing new, and I don't think we're going to stop seeing this for a while. I just hope that the middle America, the left, can see this kind of rhetoric and realize that they're talking about you. They're making fun of you. They don't care about you.
No, not at all. And it doesn't
Terrible.
matter what color you are. I mean, oh, the poor black. Oh, yeah, like the left cares about black people. Oh, yeah, like the left cares about brown people. Oh, and obviously, like the left cares about white people. No, they hate all of you. That's what people don't understand. They hate you. That's why they laugh at you at their dinners with their tuxedos on, like, oh, those poor little peons. It's literally like Hunger Games, Lily. It's like I'm watching an episode of the Hunger Games.
It's literally Hunger Games. It is exactly that. You know, you have the elites and they're all just laughing, you know, children are dying and it's our entertainment. That is quite literally what's happening. And people need to realize that they're talking about you and your neighbors. I mean, this isn't some sort of far off concept or about a far off land. This is home. This is our home, and this is you and me that they're talking about, that they have zero regard for it. And they just chuckle.
Yeah, they just sit there, they laugh at you because that's
It's never going to reach them.
Yes.
The problems will never reach the elite.
Exactly. And they also laugh at you because they think you're dumb enough to actually believe that they do care about you. It's like, oh, they're so dumb. They think that we care about them, and they keep voting for us. It's like, dude, I would be laughing too. I would literally be laughing too.
They're pulling it off perfectly. This
Literally
is they're like the
flawlessly.
Joker. It's like they do all this nonsense and then it's funny and it's working well. It's way better than I ever thought it would. I mean, I never thought we would be in the type of position that we are at in America socially today, economically today. My only response would be laughing too. They're like, we did it. They bought it. They bought into our lie.
Quite
Whatever.
literally. I mean, it's like, oh, the far left are like, we need tens of billions of dollars to send to Ukraine. I see Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. She goes to Ukraine for a photo op with President Zelensky of Ukraine, and it's like, we have a huge fentanyl crisis in the United States of America.
Oh, yeah.
We do have a huge homeless crisis in the United States of America. You go to Portland, you go to San Francisco, you go to downtown Phoenix right now. There are massive tent cities of homeless veterans and people that are living on the street.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't want to help them. Oh, just send Antifa
no.
in there to just take care of them and keep shooting them up with fentanyl.
No, deflect. If it's not a part of their mission, if it's not a part of their goal, their globalist agenda to make everything sunshine and rainbows, it's not going to get funding, it's not going to get media time, and it's not going to get any of their attention. And, you know, these crises that we're facing, they're very real. This, you know, the food shortage, the gas prices, these are essentials to life, and I think it's all on purpose. And they're causing these problems. And this food stuff, Drew, these food shortages, are we buying this?
It's a shame. We'll get into that right now. But one point that I did want to make is it's truly a shame that we live in the greatest country on the face of planet Earth, the most wealthy country on the face of planet Earth, okay? We should not be in poverty as a country. And it's getting worse. They're taking away the middle class and they want you to be in poverty.
Yep.
Please explain to me. I know this country is in trillions of dollars of debt, but this country still is extremely wealthy compared to other countries in planet Earth.
Yeah.
But what I want people to understand is you see this, and I'm getting to your point. These food shortages, right? The supply chains dying. Oh, we can't get wheat. We can't get bread. We can't get this. What do you mean?
These are
we
all
live in the
problems.
United States of America.
Right.
It's either the people at top don't know what the hell they're doing, or they do.
Yep.
And they know that they want this country to be destabilized, and they want you desperate because it gives them further excuse for full government overreach, and they know what they're doing, and they're keeping you desperate.
Oh, 100%. And all these people keep making excuses for this type of behavior. The left, your neighbors, your cousin, your aunt, you know, who are still buying into it. They make excuses like, oh, it's just an isolated incident. How many coincidences until mathematically impossible? How many more times and infractions is it going to take for these people to realize that this is a contrived attack against the American middle class in particular? These problems, the gas problems, the food problems, these are manufactured crises. We do not need to be going through these. Our farmers could be growing and plowing and doing the whole nine. We have plenty of oil to go around, but there is a reason. There's this administration's thumb on the back of the middle class not letting it happen. Why?
And I think people are asking themselves that. You need to ask yourself that. How does such a wealthy country become so poor? To where, like, gas is through the roof. Listen, I'll give you another point, too. Okay, while and I'm guilty of this, too. while we've been, sitting here making fun of, hashtag me poo and Amber Turd looking at that trial, while we've been sitting here, taking a look at what Elon Musk is doing, going viral all over Twitter, fighting for free speech in that battle, there have been multiple food plants that have been burning to the ground.
This is wild.
This is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have articles here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yep.
I think 6 different food plants that have burned down to the ground or storage facility.
One right here in Arizona.
Yes, literally one right here in Arizona.
Yeah.
And so here's a tweet from Charlie Kirk saying food processing plants don't just accidentally burn down at this rate, and they certainly don't coincidentally become landing pads for plane crashes at the rate they are. Our food supply is under attack in America. The question is, by who, Lily?
I mean, listen, when you pay attention to the global elite and you watch their meetings at Davos and you listen to Klaus Schwab and you listen to George Soros and the things that these people say who supposedly pull all the strings around here, take them at their word. Klaus Schwab said, we are going to see food shortages. We don't know what else is going to happen, but what we can tell you is that you're going to be hungry. Okay, so what are they doing? Nuking our plants. This makes perfect sense. I mean, seriously, like Charlie was saying, there's planes landing into food banks. Here in Arizona, this facility that burned down fed 50,000 people. Had 50,000 pounds of food in it. I mean, again, how many coincidences until mathematically impossible? We're not experiencing this. They are forcing it. They are forcing food shortages.
Yes.
They're blowing up our power plants. It reminds me of kind of what happened back during the Great Depression. We actually federally paid farmers and paid people who bred animals and the wheat and all that to get rid of it. Paid them to get rid of it because we had too much of it and they wanted to bring the cost down and Same thing's happening now. We have too much. Okay, I did Instacart grocery delivery over the COVID pandemic situation when, nobody was going out and shopping. Me and my mom said, we're going to make a bank off of you scaredy cats, and we're going to go and we're going to bring you your groceries. And the day that I went in there and they decided that you can put in a request for meat, right? 4 steaks. They wouldn't let me buy more than 2. Do you remember this? Do you remember when they were saying that we could only buy a certain amount of meat? First of all, 2 steaks isn't going to feed a family of 5, I can tell you that much. I eat 2 steaks myself after a hard day at the gym.
That was with everything. That was with
meat,
toilet
poultry,
paper,
all of it. It was all rationed.
water.
And it's not because we had an animal shortage. It's because we had a worker shortage. So they were suffering. They were causing suffering, causing us to be hungry, not be able to feed our family properly out of a meat crisis. It wasn't a meat crisis. They started paying people to not be working, and that's the same type of rhetoric we're seeing here. They're purposefully destroying our livelihood. If I was trying to destroy the American middle class and America as a whole, what would I be doing different, Drew? What would I be doing different?
This is exactly what you would be doing. I mean, can we get that back up one more time, you guys? This is how many plants have been burned down, or it's truly insane.
That's not even all of them.
There's
been
more.
There's been 16 in the past 5 months, and 2 of them happened in the past week and a half.
Well, there's just some of them right there. Taylor Farms Food Processing Facility, California.
Check on your local food bank. Ask them if they're good.
General Mills Processing Plant, Gem State Processing. The list goes on. Like you said, there's like 6. But here's the thing, too. Like, are people... You got to look out for your safety if you work in one of these things. Are these people like just going to take these out, like if they feel like it?
So I read some of the information on this, and general warehouse fires are not super uncommon. It happens pretty regularly, but it's always arson, they said. And the thing that they're realizing is what's really crazy is it's not just warehouse fires anymore. It is literally food banks, and it's local little food banks, and it's food processing factories. So the little guy, the little local, like my mom's pantry situation, and it's the big processors. And then, as Charlie mentioned, there's literally, not in one case, but in multiple cases, of planes landing in food factories. More than once, Drew. More than once. The pilot didn't live, but everybody inside was okay. I mean, really? We're going to buy this when they're telling us you're going to have a food shortage? They don't know that. What does that mean? That's the same thing as, we're going to see the supply chain disrupted while they go and purposefully sit all those ships on the outside. Bill Gates talking years ago, we're going to see mass vaccination, we're going to see an epidemic, we're going to see a pandemic, and then these things happen. When are people going to start taking them at their word? They're telling us. They're telling us exactly what's going to happen. And I don't know. If Klaus Schwab says something, I'm inclined to believe it.
They tell you right out in the open, okay? Like at this point, they literally tell you, just go watch some of the World Economic Forum speeches, listen to Klaus Schwab, listen to all these people that are a part of the new world order.
For your good.
For your good.
Right.
All that stuff. It's for your good. You will own nothing and be happy. Like that's real. It's literally real. But the point too is this, is because they're so out in the open with it and they just like literally put it in your face, it's because they think that you're not smart enough to even pick up on it, and because people are willing to just accept it. And that's the problem right now, not only in our country, but in our world. And then people say, oh, you're just a liar. No, Bill Gates or Klaus Schwab cares about me. Okay, they're telling you that food shortages are coming. They're telling you that the supply chains are no longer. Okay, they're telling you all of these things that are going to happen to your country. Meanwhile, Bill Gates buys up tons of farmland, which is a fact.
That's freaking disgusting and crazy. Do people know that? Like every time I tell my friends that the largest farmland owner in the United States is Mr. Computer Chip Bill Gates, they're like, nah, that's not true. There's no way. Yes way, it's true. Check it out. Mr. Billy Gates, Mr. Computer Chip Megacon is owning our farmland. And then second to that is actually the CCP. They can just keep buying up acres and acres and acres of our land. Is that not concerning to anybody? And also, I'm just going to get ahead of the curve here and put my tinfoil hat on real quick. They keep preaching about climate crises, preaching about, the next big thing that we're going to see, and that's not my words, that's CNN words, MSNBC, all the lefty loonies. This is what they're telling us. So I would watch out for a giant increase of random weather scenarios. And I know that sounds crazy because, they can't screw with the weather. Yes, they can. Why can't they? They can screw with our food. They can screw with our economics and our gas and our wheat and our pigs and everything else. What's stopping them? I mean, because that would be quite bizarre, would it not? I mean, a couple months compared to like the world's timing and how many like weather events happen in a normal calendar year, I bet you they're going to start going crazy. Fires, tornadoes, all of that. And I don't know. One of those things we'll have to check into, see if there's any merit to it. But I can't imagine it would be an organic problem.
But at this point, nothing surprises me. I mean,
smart ones.
Right? Like if you were alive during 2020 and the so-called pandemic, like everything that was happening, the mass hysteria that took place in the United States, across the entire world, people would have never thought in a million years that Americans would be so willing to just throw their freedoms down the drain so quickly, all for security and safety.
Yep.
And what I'm saying is nothing surprises me at this point. They all have their agenda, whether they want to go to climate, whether they want to go to destabilizing the climate, destabilizing economies, whether they want to go to launching some kind of man-made virus into the world. This is nothing new. It's not conspiracy theory, and these people are doing it literally not even right under your nose, right in front of your face.
They're telling you.
They tell you because they think that you're not crap and you can't do anything about it.
They're telling you, they're telling your kids, they're telling your grandma while she watches her news at night. I mean, this is really crazy. This Daily Nation Today article talks about this plane that crashed into General Mills plant in Covington, okay? Then you go to the next one. Aviation Pros. Plane crashes into Idaho potato and food processing plant, okay? Killing the pilot. And then you go to another one. Georgia, plane crash. I mean, this stuff, it cannot be organic.
No.
It cannot. How many coincidences until it's mathematically impossible? I don't think we've had, I don't know, fact check me, I don't think we've had 3 planes crash into anything in the past calendar year, much less 3 food processing plants after they told us that there's going to be a food crisis.
No, see, the thing is we get bold and we come out and we connect the dots and say, hey, there's something here and it's not organic. They're obviously doing something. They're doing something by taking out food processing plants, like literally systematically.
Yeah.
But anyone that comes out and says that, you're called a conspiracy theorist because we're trailblazing and we're ahead of the curve. But everyone that said the same thing about the origins of COVID or said the same thing about what took place with all of the other stuff with Hunter Biden's laptop and Weinstein, Epstein, you name it. Everyone's a conspiracy theorist, but this is just like
Have you been wrong
right there.
once, Drew? Because this is what I have to keep coming back to. I have these conversations
I think
with
you'd have
people.
to ask my wife that question.
Okay, let's be more specific here. In regards to the functions of humanity anymore, I haven't been wrong, really, honestly, and I try to be humble about it, but come on. I mean, we are the ones saying these things, and people are writing us off as crazy conspiracy theorists, and we have not been wrong yet. We are right about every instance of what happened with the pandemic, from it being a bioweapon, from it being, you know, miscategorized in the media, to the treatments that were all wrong the entire time, and then the death numbers, and everything's been wrong about the pandemic. Everything's been wrong about crime statistics. Everything's been wrong about their handling the economy and our gas prices. So God forbid they're wrong about this, and this is not an accident. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Target the food. Starve the people. What makes you most dependent on the government?
Yep.
What happens when you can't eat? You starve.
that's
And then you
the
have
agenda.
to take a handout. Then you have to. I know, and that's why people need to realize this is so calculated and it's so smart. It is not organic, and they're doing it to target the middle class and you and your family and your well-being.
Yes. So here's actually the great Tucker Carlson commenting on all of these food plants coming down. It's crazy. Take a look.
Over the last several weeks, more than a dozen food processing plants have had major disasters, mostly fires, some of them unexplained.
There is a fascinating common denominator, which is that all of these dangerous episodes happened at plants or facilities that process or store food. And of course, with inflation, food shortages, supply chain problems, and the war in Ukraine, the timing here could not be worse. We should note that over the past several years, major incidents at food plants have happened on a fairly regular basis, but it is the recent and dramatic increase in frequency that really caught our eye. And in the span of just 1 week, during the safest point in aviation history, we also had 2 planes that crashed into food plants.
I'm sorry, dude. I don't believe that's organic. You can't convince me that that's real.
Okay, so here's a call
I mean,
to
real
action.
in the sense that it's just happening by itself.
Somebody needs to go look into who those pilots were. Go find their names, find out who died, background check them, find out their history with the FBI and the CIA, see what they did wrong, find out what was over their heads and what forced them to get in a plane and crash it into a food supply warehouse.
Even if that's possible.
Just check. Just check.
If they haven't been erased from
society and if I'm
already.
wrong, I will stand here and I will say, you know what? It's been the first time, and I am wrong, and my conjecture and my suspicions of this corrupt entity have been misguided, and it was all organic, and now we have food shortages, and it was all an accident. But I don't think that's the case.
I don't
It's
either.
never been the case.
I don't either.
Oh my goodness.
Well, to
man.
give you guys some facts, Breitbart reports they've compiled this. Massive food inflation, farm prices up 31%.
This is crazy.
As eggs, meat, vegetables, chickens, dairy, corn, and wheat soar. The prices of United States farm products continued to rise in March, reflecting the inflationary pressures gripping the United States economy and fears that the war in Ukraine and sanctions in Russia could lead to food shortages around the globe. Oh, how convenient. The Department of Agriculture said Friday that its index of prices received by United States farmers increased 6.3% from February and 31% from March 2021. Grain and oilseed up 5.5% from February and 28% from March 2021. And guess you know who took office during that time?
Oh, and it just gets worse. Dairy up 4.9% from the previous month and 50% from March a year ago. Poultry and eggs up 16% from February and 76% from March 2021. 76%? You know what's funny? Notice what has the highest inflation. Meat, eggs, dairy. All the things that, a couple things here. All the things that the elites, like Bill Gates, says that we need to get rid of and take out of our diets anyway. You'll eat synthetic meat and you'll like it, okay? That's what they say. So that's very odd. Number two, they obviously supply the most protein and nutrition. And so, since we know that people who work out and take care of their body are right-wing extremists, this makes perfect sense. Target the essentials. What do you need? Vegetables and melon up 34%, 68% from March 2021. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is really bad.
I think a lot of, I think too, Lily, is like, I think a lot of people, I think they just think like food falls out of the sky, you know? Like,
Oh, 100%.
Like it's manna, or they just think that like the basics, or some people just think like going to In-N-Out, not all people, our viewers, I'm not insulting you guys, but people that don't think, right? People that don't think just think that a cheeseburger just appears, or your chicken nuggets or your chicken strips at Chick-fil-A just appear out of thin air.
Oh,
But
it's so true.
There's a reason why we have ingredients to food, like the basics to actually create some of this stuff. And these people know this. And they know that if you could destabilize that supply chain to take away what these people are creating for you to just go down to the fast food, whatever, to get what you love to eat, they could take away the whole thing to where they know that you don't know how to farm, you don't know how to support yourself.
That's it.
You are so dependent on fast food, you are so dependent on everything else. We are going to usher in what we want you to have next.
That's it. And that's why I've been really challenging conservatives, especially my friend group, to be more self-sufficient. Figure out a way to make your own food. Like, when was the last time you regularly cooked your own meals? When was the last time you grew anything? When was, obviously, not the last time you should go shot and kill an animal. It's not very practical for us city folks, but it's a real skill that you're going to need to know how to do. And I think that's very right, Drew. They're targeting you. A good friend of mine once said that convenience is compromise. And I think that's very, very telling in this situation where, the regular office worker doesn't really have time or doesn't regularly cook their own meal. They're not the ones farming things. They're not the ones doing that. So we are handicapped in that way almost now because, good men create soft times and soft time create bad times, and now we got nothing. And that's really how it goes, where people don't know how to do these basic functions, and we need to get back to that. And we need to start pouring into our local community. Go to your local farmer's market, buy your local eggs, buy your local meat, buy your local milk. Stop buying big corporate branded products. Not only are they terrible for you and full of additives, but it's not helping the economy in your local area. You need to pour into your own backyard and know how to do these things, because I'm telling you, it's not going to get better before it gets worse. And there's going to be a time when Americans are going to need to know how to till the soil and how to grow your own food and cook your own food. History repeats itself. Figure it out. We have to. There's no other option. I mean, look, if this isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about like real death. Like, this is things that kill people really quickly.
Yep.
So you have to know how to grow your own food. And Mr. Billy Gates buying up all that farmland. So if you got money and a daddy out in Texas, you need to make sure you're planting some soil.
Absolutely. And I mean, this goes back to the point where it's intentional, it's an agenda, and they want this to be done because it's about population control, and there's too many people in the world according to the globalist mindset.
For sure.
And they know that they want to decrease the population in the world that we live in. But I mean, you will own nothing and you will be happy. These people literally believe that. And they want you to believe that that's normal. They don't like America because America still, even though we're seeing a lot of the decrease and the literally gutting of the Constitution and our freedoms in the country, it still stands as a beacon of hope, freedom in this world. It's a light.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. And they know that. And this is why they hate nationalism, American nationalism. This is why they hate American patriotism. This is why they hate anything American or any American independence, because America doesn't fit on the global stage. America doesn't fit when it comes to the global elite saying, oh, we should just be globally unified. We should have a new world order. We should all just sing Kumbaya, be one big happy family. We should all just be the same. Unfortunately for them, America still is not the same. We still stand tall. We still stand free. We still have our Constitution. We still say no to any totalitarian, socialist, communist, globalist government. That is why they hate you. Does it make sense? That is why these far-left psychopaths, these globalist operatives in the far left and in the United States of America, they get Americans to literally hate themselves.
Yeah.
Because it's a global agenda that they want to unfold, because you cannot have an autonomous country, a constitutional republic, a massive superpower like the United States of America. You cannot have that if you want a global world regime. And they're not going to fire a shot. They've been doing it from within, and they've been doing it successfully. Lily, final word. We got 30 seconds left.
Become self-sufficient. That's how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be taking care of ourselves. Stop taking handouts. Stop compromising on the little things. You need to be able to grow your own food, take care of your family, know what your children are learning. It's the only way to combat this totalitarian BS. Get into your children's lives, get into your family's life, figure out, buy a commune with your family, and figure out how to protect yourself against this stuff, because people aren't hearing it, they're not seeing it, so save yourself. Be active.
Absolutely. Lily, where can people follow you in all your great work? Thank you for joining me.
Oh, no problem. Lily Standley USA on Instagram and Twitter.
Well, there she is. America, you see what is happening to your country in real time. It is not a conspiracy theory. The rise in gas prices, the rise in inflation. They're telling you, oh, you know, you're too poor. You can't get gas. Buy an EV. Oh, you can't get that. Oh, well, screw you. And they laugh at you at the White House Correspondents' Conference because they hate you. My name is Drew Hernandez. These are the front lines. I'll see you guys next
These are the front lines.
Restrooms that definitely shouldn't be there. The View is on a sex strike, thank God, and so much more nonsense in the daily briefing. Next, there's news that the FDA is cracking down on Johnson & Johnson's jab because of blood clots. Seems a little too late to me, but this is President Biden's America, people. Then the DA of LA is letting Dave Chappelle's armed attacker off the hook. We'll break that down for you. And finally, a brand new edition of the School Board Watch List, followed by our April Culture Point winners at Turning Point USA in one last thing. Let's get this party started. TVUSA Live from HQ starts right now.
Authentic, unfiltered, grassroots content and conversation every weekday. Live from Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA headquarters, this is TPUSA Live.
Well, once again, welcome to TVUSA HQ in Phoenix, Arizona. I want to do a huge shout out to our mothers for birthing us.
Shout out to your mother.
It's going to be a big weekend for them. I know there's a lot of craziness going on in the world, but definitely glad that they decided to give us life. I'll start with that. But we got Connor Clegg, the producer of the Charlie Kirk Show. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
And we also got Lily Standley and Madison McClean, both TVUSA employees, good co-workers of ours. We're going to start with this in the daily briefing. First off, a little TPUSA exclusive. So producer Braden, one of the great participants on the producer side of this whole thing right here, he's got a friend at UCLA. And he said, you won't believe what's going on in the men's restrooms here at the University of California, Los Angeles. Check it out. Yep, there is the men's restroom, which you saw walking in. That's his good buddy, Tom Raffelli. Said, luckily I went there. I found a roll of quarters.
Lovely.
You got menstrual products there, Connor, in the bathroom. Luckily, they're starting to really implement some of these things, and they obviously got UCLA facilities management on there. Tampax.
I love when my tampons are branded. No, despite what the name may seem to suggest, to menstruate, you can't be a man. And
really,
it's true. It's shocking. I know that the name is a little bit deceiving, but the men has nothing to do with it, you know. Yeah, that's very anti-science. It's concerning to think that an institution of higher education in the United States of America would be pushing such an anti-science idea at the expense of the California taxpayers. But it's also just weird.
It's
I don't know.
so weird. It's just odd because the percentage, I can't believe I'm going to even say this, but the percentage of men who have a uterus and are able to menstruate
zero, just so we're clear.
Is pretty close to zero. So
no, it's zero.
I mean, it is really zero, but I guess in some instances you can have enough surgeries and get, I don't know, whatever the thing is. But, so, I mean, then you're just making the rest of the men uncomfy in there, and it's like at the expense of all the normal people.
Yeah, I mean,
it's weird.
That's the thing, it's at the expense of everybody, and it seems like, you know, I'm not a biologist, you're not a biologist.
No.
None of us are biologists, but here we are able to make that observation very, very easily, so.
Yeah, I can't say that Connor and I are going to need a lot of use for those menstrual products when we go into the bathroom here at TVUSA.
I don't think we will, because I can't menstruate and I don't have a period, and I feel for those who do have periods, the women that have periods. But it's also a beautiful thing, and God created us perfectly.
It's also interesting that no women are really getting pissed off at this, because there's been a lot of women who fought for a very long time for them to be able to have like provided menstrual products in the bathrooms, right? That's always been a big thing. Like, well, why aren't there provided tampons in all public restrooms for women? And now, you know, just a summer of anarchy from men, and now they just get the products handed to them, you know? So it's just very interesting, the timing.
We don't want tampons. I want, can we get a football, baseball, basketball in there or something? In
the bathroom.
Next summer, John.
I will say, I was the, not to be like a high school hero, I was a student body president at a school in Texas, Texas State University, and this was proposed as a program that they wanted to do, was to provide tampons in men's restrooms. And as the person who had kind of the veto power over the budget on behalf of the students, I said, no, what the hell, right? We're not going to do that. And this was in 2018 in the state of Texas.
Wow.
And we were able to say no then, but obviously that's not happening anymore. So all it takes is someone willing to stand up and just be like, yeah, this isn't how this works.
Yeah, this is absurd. Right.
Are we surprised it's UCLA, though?
No,
not at all. A little teaser for the end of the show. We actually are going to cover the school board watch list, and Oregon has an Oregon Menstrual Dignity Act. We're going to dive into all that and so much more. But something we haven't dove into is The View. In a long time. I missed them. It's been a couple weeks since we talked about The View. And obviously, everything that's going on with Roe v. Wade, everything in the abortion hot topic, you're going to have big talking heads like this say, well, this is what we're going to do about it. We're not going to have sex. And it's like, well, it's probably good for society.
What a concept. Are you saying that you actually, there's a purpose to getting pregnant? That's interesting.
Check it out.
On things that are racist. I'm a black woman first, so always understand that. But I do say that I have many conservative values that I will talk to you about. And so if you look at your network that you're standing behind, yes, and when you look at your network that you're standing behind, you're saying that you look at Chris Cuomo.
I feel like that's an oxymoron, a black Republican.
You feel like it's an oxymoron?
I do.
Why? Your friend right here is a Republican.
We had this conversation many times.
You do, and you say you feel like it's an oxymoron that you're Catholic, but you also are pro-life.
I don't understand either.
No, you don't understand yourself then. You have disagreements.
I understand myself. I don't understand either of you.
This is another part of the conversation. In some of that conversation, they were talking about abortion, saying how they were going to go on a sex strike. And then here, basically, you have a lot of people who are just gaslighting a specific side. And they're saying, there's no way that you can be black and conservative. How does that even work? And then
that's called tribalism.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear. Okay.
Well, it sounds like deja vu. I think Biden said something very similar when he said, if you're not for me, then you ain't black. And if we're just going to repeat the same talking points over and over again, I feel like for conservatives, that gives us so much leverage, right? It gives us so much to fight back against when literally the depth of their argument is just to say, I don't get it, it doesn't make any sense, and lump everybody into boxes. It's really easy for us to come back with a more solid, rooted argument.
She also didn't give her an opportunity to explain herself. She was saying, oh, I don't understand that, and she was trying to talk and explain, and she just kept being bulldozed over. So
but that's what everybody did. I feel like Charlie does a great job of that on campus. It's just allowing people to speak. Because I feel like that's the only way that you bridge some sort of divide. Is like, all right, here's your stance, here's my stance, let's have a little rebuttal, let's come together. But a lot of these people feel you don't even have the right to speak.
Yeah, of course not. That's probably because they're scared because they know that our ideas are better, right? So if they gave us a chance to speak, then they know that they would look stupid, or maybe they would be convinced that their ideas are wrong.
Yeah.
And they're just living in such a state of nihilistic self-denial, and they enjoy that for whatever reason. We're the speaking beings, humans are. We're not animals, and we communicate with words and reason and logic. And when you fail to do that the way that these people on The View do every single day, then you become no better than, a bunch of orangutans or giraffes, or in Whoopi's case, like a silverback gorilla.
There you go.
I can't imagine they're having much sex anyway, by the way. I just want to say that. Right?
That's something that we definitely need to touch on. I can't imagine a lot of people want the whoopee cushion. And,
I don't.
No. I do love Whoopi. I love Whoopi Goldberg just personally as an actress. I'm a big fan of The Color Purple. I watched it the other day. It made me cry.
And then another thing I wanted to touch on is I love superhero movies. I always have, except for, Disney, Call Me Captain Obvious. Everything they touch now just goes to crap. So, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I was excited about that movie coming out because I've kind of enjoyed those. It came out yesterday. So saw that with a few of my buddies. And for me, I was just like, all right, they're going to have a good storyline, just work it into the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And they have a brand new superhero called America Chavez.
America Chavez.
America Chavez. That. So this superhero got introduced around 2011 and is said to be one of the most powerful superheroes. And when they say powerful, they have a certain agenda behind it. So we're going to show you what America Chavez was wearing in this movie. And I noticed right off the bat, you see on this jacket there's a pin. That pin on the jacket, while there's the American stripes, that is the modern pride flag. And when you're watching that movie, that is right in your face. And they want you to know, because I was tapping one of our coworkers that I went to the movie with yesterday. I was like, do you know what that flag is? Because it looks like the pride flag, but I haven't seen that one. But I guess it's the modern pride flag because it's got trans.
It's got it all of the stuff in it.
And with this, I was just like, this person's supposed to be representing America, and this is supposed to be progress. And when I think representing America, I think of Captain America.
Exactly.
Where it's just like, there's grit and there's resilience and there's coming together. Then it's like, no, America, you know what we are? We're progressive.
That's the point, right? That was
We're
the
weak.
point. Was the
And
name
we're gay.
always
Yes,
America
Connor.
Chavez? Was that
America
always the
Chavez.
name? Why they couldn't just go with America Mexico? They had to make it America Chavez.
Exactly.
That's just bizarre.
And then another thing you saw on the jacket, if you go and see that movie, which I actually don't suggest, because outside of that, I don't think the movie was that good anyway. It said, amor es amor. So love is love.
Love is
So
love.
it's literally just,
good.
it's in your face, and it has nothing to, it doesn't add to the plot whatsoever, and that's what you're going to see from Disney.
That's the point. Just to check the box. Just get it in there. Make sure it has an appearance that they know. It's a virtue signal. It's a, oh my God, we're such a good company. We're so progressive.
It is a multiverse of madness, and it is a world of madness, and it's a country of madness right now. But hopefully we give you a little bit of sanity on TPUSA Live. We're going to talk about the Student Action Summit and tell you who's going to be speaking there in just a little bit, and we'll be back for some of the wildest, wackiest, and weirdest stories we found this week. Don't go anywhere.
Calling all based patriots, meme lords, and conservatives, Student Action Summit is happening 2022, Tampa, Florida, July 22nd through the 24th. You don't want to miss it. You'll make lifelong friends, you'll probably meet your soulmate, and you'll be able to network with the biggest names in the conservative movement. Sign up now on tpusa.com.
Meme lords, you can find your soulmate at the Student Action Summit, I guess. If you want to get tickets,
Yep.
if you want to get tickets, you can go to tpusa.com.
In that exchange, it seems like Donald Trump is the only one who took that oath seriously, because he was willing to do what needed to be done, which was bombing the drug labs and killing the cartel members. 105,000 plus people died from fentanyl overdose last year alone, the most ever. That's the leading cause of mortality in the United States,
It is, yep.
right? And where is all of that fentanyl coming from? Well, it's coming from China, but it's also being smuggled through our borders by the cartels. So if you can do something to stop that from happening, i.e., I don't know, blowing the people up, why wouldn't you do it? If you're not opposed to that, then I have issues with you.
And it's a huge problem, too, because obviously we're seeing so many people die here in America at the hands of fentanyl. And when it's easier to get fentanyl than ivermectin here in America, that's a serious problem. And something needs to be done to deal with that and to put those people out of commission. So I'm all about
seeing
it.
a red flag. Yeah, I'm not seeing a downside to that. I mean, to be clear, bombing all the drug production areas across the states would also be productive. Like anything that is producing things that kill
bomb
people.
Pfizer.
I mean, seriously, it's a real problem. The fentanyl stuff is really bad, especially here in Arizona. We're a border state. Our good friend Mark Lamb tells us all the time about the atrocities being committed at our border. So I'm with Daddy Don on this one.
Yeah, of course.
And then Esper said that he was going to be suing the Defense Department over his upcoming memoir, claiming it had blocked parts of it under the guise of classification. Good luck, Esper.
What a loser. I always thought that he looked really weak. He was not a good look for defense secretary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why he lost his job pretty quick.
Probably.
And also, too, want to do a little disclaimer. Clearly, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a virologist. Neither is Alyssa Milano or Bill Gates or any of these crazy lefties. And you can make your decisions medically.
I am a doctor.
But Connor is a doctor, so luckily we got a doctor
Connor
here.
identifies as a doctor, to be clear.
There's news that came out of the FDA limits the use of Johnson & Johnson due to rare blood clots. Isn't it crazy that stuff that we brought up for so long is now they're finally admitting it? It's way too late.
Been right.
So what they were saying was for people who are 18 and older, if they can't get another shot or they want to remain unvaccinated, they've imposed new restrictions as of yesterday of that vaccine because there's a risk of rare and life-threatening blood clot syndrome, and it outweighs the benefits of the vaccine.
Yeah, okay, so to be clear, Johnson & Johnson has been having problems, right? It got recalled the day after they made all the San Jose Sharks take the vaccine.
Yep.
They recalled the vaccine, saying it was causing problems. They spent like 4 days tweaking it and put it right back on the market. And now you have the head of the FDA saying, yeah, well, you should probably go with, a different one. Let's go with Pfizer or Moderna, instead of just saying, yo, this is hurting people. Let's remove it from the market entirely. We should have done more experimentation this entire time, and we're not going to be responsible for hurting any more people, so we're taking it off. But no, they can't do that.
Well, for like you were saying, there's a lot of athletes and there was a lot of people across the country, and you had options. You got Moderna, you got Pfizer, and you got Johnson & Johnson. With J&J, they basically said this is the one-hitter-quitter situation.
It was the default for a lot of sports teams, unfortunately. Like a lot of pro athletes I've talked to, they were forced to get J&J. They weren't given the option because it was cheaper and it's a one-stop shop. You don't have to take 2 weeks off to recover, and you don't got to go back in and then take another 2 weeks off to recover. You get it done, and then it gets recalled, and then 8 guys are off rehabbing in bed, and nobody thought anything of it, and here we are, and now they're admitting and saying what we've been saying this entire time, that this is problematic. Reparations!
Well, you know what could be happening within those 2 weeks that normally people would have to take off, taking Moderna or Pfizer? Probably getting a blood clot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
That's what's happening
it's terrible. I don't find it
and
funny.
all of it's just profit motivated at the end of the day. Whenever they can make a buck off of this, they're going to take advantage of every opportunity. And even Fauci will come out and say, oh, the best vaccination is being sick with the virus yourself. And it's like, at that point, okay, all of these words are so void.
But just think about it. So, like, what's the benefit of having a blood clot? Then you got to go back. Then you got to get more medication. Then you got to pay the doctors for being there. And then you got to pay your prescription. And then you're just becoming another serial client to the medical industry. And again, a healed patient is a lost customer. It's almost like it makes sense, right?
It's a transactional
Just assuming you don't
relationship.
die.
Yes, but then you have to pay a death fee as well. So
death taxes.
And they're saying, as of data, as of March 18th, there's been about 60 confirmed deaths, blood clotting.
Reported deaths. Reported deaths, to be clear.
Yeah. And then...
who said that?
Or 60,
FDA.
60 confirmed cases, including 9 that resulted in death, as what's been reported so far.
Clearly, the FDA is a QAnon organization. If they would say something like that, I mean, right? That's the standards that we're forced to live by.
And then
obviously, they're taking horse pills and horse dewormers and hanging out with Joe Rogan. That's dangerous. I mean, that's what they told us for years, and now all of a sudden they're saying the same thing that we've said for a long time now. And we're just supposed to take them seriously and not make them feel like the idiots that they are.
Seriously.
Right?
Real quick, on the piggyback of the horse dewormer stuff, I just saw this crazy pro-choice account posting something about how taking too much horse medicine can abort your baby for you, so that when you can't get an abortion, now they're promoting the horse dewormer.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, right? Because it's just whatever fits.
Just when it's
whenever
convenient for their narrative. Yep.
Disgusting. Sorry, continue.
And then the FDA said, I mean, also, you really can't trust the FDA at this point. I mean,
at this point, we haven't been able to trust them for years.
A long time.
Minorities haven't been trusting them
You're picking up what I'm
since the
putting down.
60s.
You haven't been able to trust them for a while, but they're saying that 3.23 cases of the clotting syndrome per million doses of vaccines administered, and about 0.5 deaths per million doses of vaccine
reported.
administered.
That seems incredibly low.
Once again, just reported. So, I mean, it seems just like a little too late. Because at this point, too, they're not pushing you to get a vaccine to play sports. They're not pushing you to get a vaccine to
they already
go
did
to
it.
work.
Athletes who are still athletes already got the vaccine. They had to in order to remain an athlete.
Well, also, the other thing that doesn't get talked about enough, the military vaccination requirement, to my knowledge, is still in place.
Yep.
And so on the eve and on the brink of them driving us closer and closer to World War III, the last thing that I want to hear is that the vaccines that they're making our military members take might have them, or might cause them to have blood clots. Right?
Make our military weaker?
What a concept.
That would be.
And we should find it
Dick
alarming
Levine,
that there's still CDC employees, hundreds of them, that haven't
400
taken the
plus.
vaccine.
3%.
So we should find that very alarming when we're being fed all this information and
Don't talk about it, though.
Don't talk about it.
You're a
Thought
conspiracy
crimes.
theorist.
Yep.
It's a crazy world we live in. I'll tell you that for sure. But we are going to take a quick break, get a message from our friends at Patriot Mobile, and then we'll be back telling you all about how DA Gascon is letting the assaulter of Dave Chappelle off the hook. Don't go anywhere.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now, more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies who fight for our rights and our beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to our causes, and with your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Welcome back to TVUSA Live. We got Connor Clegg, Madison McClean, Lily Standley. I'm Jon Root. Got to talk about another district attorney that is making his city go down the crapper. There's also a lot of crapper in LA. There's a lot.
There's a lot. It smells really bad there, too.
And coming from a place like San Francisco, he knows all about crap. But a little breakdown of the DA of LA. You got George Gascon. His background, 1978, joined the LAPD, had a little stint with them, and then was hired as the chief of police in Mesa, Arizona, right around the block.
Oh.
And then he served as the chief of police from 2006 to 2009. And then he was thrown out and then decided, you know what, why don't I go to San Francisco and enact some liberal policies there. And then once he destroyed San Francisco, being soft on crime, obviously that's a place that we're showing tons of videos. Benny Johnson, contributor here, does a great job sharing a lot of those videos on his social media. And in 2020, he ran for the district attorney of Los Angeles, won, and immediately started to destroy Los Angeles. A few of these things that he is implementing in LA is he's no longer going to prosecute these crimes: trespassing, disturbing the peace, driving without a license, driving on a suspended license, criminal threats, drug and paraphernalia possession, minor in possession of alcohol, drinking in public, under the influence of a controlled substance, public intoxication, loitering, resisting arrest, committing prostitution.
Oh my gosh.
If you want a little video of all this, check it out.
The reality is that a punishment-based approach to the work does not serve us well. An eye for an eye is not the way the government should behave.
Yikes. It's never been the way the government behaved. I think we have very minor sentences for all sorts of crimes. I mean, and there's serious repercussions in driving without a license, public intoxication, minor in consumption, and all these other things. Prostitution? Like, these are real problems, and we're just gonna, an eye for an eye. That's ridiculously dramatic.
Eye for an eye is the Code of Hammurabi. It's the first legal system that was ever put in place in the history of the world. And the fact that we're still talking about it today shows its permanence and its value, right? Because it's actually not a bad way to go about things, right? I said this the other day, and everyone's like, I can't believe you said that, but it's true. So if everyone is screeching about this, right? They're saying if they overturn Roe, and we're forced into the back alleys to have our abortions, right? Well, I talk with him and talk about this. Then I'm going to die with a coat hanger up my body, right? And I was like, well, you're trying to kill an innocent, unborn, beautiful baby child, and I'm supposed to feel bad for you because you think that you're going to hurt yourself when you shove a coat hanger up yourself? I really don't. That's an eye for an eye. That's called justice, right? You're a murderer, you die. Whatever.
It's also incredibly misinformed, considering that if it gets overturned, it's just going to become a state problem and not a federal problem.
Correct.
In which we've already seen plenty of states saying that we will fly you here, taxpayer funded, airfare covered, housing covered, food covered, so you can kill your baby here in the state of California. That's what they just said.
It's a murder tourism industry. It's super creepy.
Yeah, so that's just ridiculous. I would like us to keep watch on the numbers of women who die with coat hangers up them, because I have a feeling it's going to continue to be incredibly low.
Well, and just going back to Gascon.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
If you're actually, no, you're good, I love it. But like if you go to downtown LA, you see all this happening firsthand. You see homelessness everywhere. You see people just running through the streets, not giving a crap. They're wielding weapons and all this kind of thing. It's anarchy.
I don't understand the appeal to it. I don't understand, unless your agenda is chaos, which clearly it is, who benefits from decriminalizing prostitution? Not the girls that are being trafficked into it, that's for sure. Not the pimps that are forcing these girls into this livelihood. Not the babies that are going to be aborted from it. I mean, it's not helping anybody. The only thing it's helping is cause chaos in the streets so that they continue to oppose their totalitarian agenda on top of you, because you cannot control a healthy and sound, calm people. You can only control a chaotic people. And so that's the point, clearly.
And that's when you need journalists to actually ask the simple question of how does this make LA safer? Explain that. And then
decriminalizing crime. How does it make it safer?
The 250,000 people that have left in the past couple of years. It's the second most declining population state in the whole union, with people and these liberal policies being enacted everywhere. The people are leaving and they're fleeing to places like here, Arizona and Florida, and it's impossible to get a house here.
And it's hurting minorities. And that's
Lily,
I know.
let's be clear.
Excuse me.
The policies that he is putting in place and the things that he is decriminalizing, the reason why he's doing it is because to criminalize those things is rooted in deep systematic racism. To criminalize drug use and to criminalize prostitution and to criminalize all this licentiousness. Well, that was rooted in deeply held, kind of racist, in the state of California, obviously, where slavery was a really big problem, right?
Yeah.
That's why they do these things. There was a really cool clip. We should have got, but there was a gangbanger in LA, right? Tucker Carlson did an entire segment on this.
Yeah, I saw this.
Where he was like, man, that Gascon, man, I'm gonna get his face tattooed on my face, man. And he's like, why, homie? And I could stop doing the accent. Probably offensive.
No, please.
He was like, why? And he said, because he just dropped some of his charges, some of his higher charges. Like, so if you get arrested, you get a gun charge that adds 25 years. If you get a gang charge, that adds 30 years. Gascon is going in and dropping all these extra charges, and that leads to gangbangers and criminals and violent felons and rapists and drug dealers and traffickers and all these people being let out onto the streets.
It's incentivizing crime.
And they're literally praising God, or whatever God they look up to, for George Gascon. And
it's because people just want to play God. That's the problem. When people get power, it's addicting, and it morphs their brain, and it causes them to do weird godlike things, like play with the lives of others. And so dismissing these people's sentences, he's obviously getting off to it. I'm not understanding still. I don't get the appeal. Just chaos. That's the only point.
It's the hand of the devil at work.
Yeah, it's got to just be chaos, because it's not helping anybody. It's only hurting people. Allowing criminals off with a lesser sentence is so backwards. I don't know. Same thing for Ketanji Brown Jackson being a pedophile simp. I mean, it's the same thing.
Well, that's why I feel like there's an aspect of mass formation psychosis with the way we look at people now. Where like the best way to take care of these minority groups or specific people in LA is just let the kids be kids. Almost situation. Like, no, these are like spoiled criminals, and that's putting it extremely lightly. Like, how do you discipline a kid?
I mean,
like, you make sure you tell them what's wrong, and there's consequences. And if you keep trying to tell people, like, I know it's not right, but like, you guys just need to let off steam. And it's the same thing that was happening with BLM riots, where it's like, people are just rightfully angry. This is a righteous anger. Let them do their thing, burn down businesses. People might lose their life, but it's all for some sort of progress. And that's literally what people like DA Gascon feel.
Well, I mean, it just shows the left's twisted mentality when they raise up criminals over the civilized. And Charlie talks about this all the time. But as you can see, all they do, like just in California in general, is they make all these policies that are criminalizing and attacking rightful gun owners, people in the shops that are doing the right thing, and then what are they doing? They're getting people who are real criminals off early. They're really seriously preferring the criminal over the civilized through legislation, through social awareness projects, and through taxation. And it's like what? That's so backwards. And it's through everything that they're doing. They're preferring the uncivilized.
Yeah, because look, order in a society is a biblical value. It's rooted in tradition, and it's rooted in the entire framework of what made America as incredible as it is in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So you can't have order in a city like Los Angeles, because that undermines your ability to exert the will that you have as a mini micro tyrant like George Gascon is. He sounds very feminine, by the way. I've never really heard him talk. I didn't think he would sound like that, but he sounds very feminine. That tells you a lot. But anyway, here's where it really gets dangerous, though, right? So there was the incident over the weekend that we saw where someone rushed the stage with Dave Chappelle on the stage, and they had a weapon, and having a weapon and charging someone with it with the intent to do harm could be a felony. It is a felony.
It should
right?
be. Yeah, 100%.
You know, we see it on video. Do we have the video of that?
We have the photo of that.
Yeah.
We showed the video the other day, but we can throw that photo back up on the screen there. You can see.
Here, look at that. Poor Dave. He looks so sad in that picture.
Well, and Gascon came out and said that we're not going to prosecute this guy because there's not enough evidence. Well, there's the evidence right there.
Does the knife need to be inside of him? Like, does the knife need to be already, like he's already bleeding out in order to understand?
The burden of proof is on them at this point. There's evidence all over the place.
But you know why this is so terrifying, though? Is because the person who went off and attacked Dave, they did it because Dave has been very bold in speaking out against the madness that is the transgender movement, right? So what this says, and now it's endorsed by official government policy of George Gascon, is that if you disagree and you're offended by your
we're not going to protect
political opponents or your political enemies' views and opinions, then yeah, you can go be like this vigilante justice taker and you can go stab them. You can go kill your political opponents in the streets in broad daylight with thousands of people watching, and I won't do anything about it as law enforcement because you're serving the regime by doing that. You faithful soldier. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, all they're doing is just justifying this. I know I saw this originally from Joe Rogan yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's comedians like this, there's no reason that Dave Chappelle should be doing another LA show after this at all. Like, don't ever go back. And I'm sure since he has so much power and influence in comedy, I'm sure he's going to tell some people the same thing. Just don't go to LA.
Yeah.
You're not even safe there in the streets. And even when you feel like you should be safe on stage, there could be someone that literally assaults you, and they're going to be able to get away with it just because they don't like what you have to say at a comedy show. This is supposed to make people laugh. This isn't like a State of the Union address at all.
Well, it
I mean, that just emboldens other criminals, because if you look around and you see a guy doing something like that you've thought about doing, and he's not going to get in trouble and not going to get prosecuted, not going to serve a sentence, and not going to be demonized in society, then you're thinking, I can do that too.
Right.
And then so someone else is going to fall victim, someone else will die, and the blood's going to be on Gascon's hands.
And then specifically from the DA's office, this is what they're quoted saying: after reviewing the evidence, prosecutors determined that while criminal conduct occurred, the evidence as presented did not constitute felony conduct.
While criminal conduct occurred.
It's just
what else do you need to
law? Throw it out.
Literally.
Order, throw it out.
Yeah.
While it was wrong, here's why we're going to tell you that it's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you can use your. There are certain areas of the United States of America, we all know this, where police have the discretion and district attorneys have the discretion as to whether or not they're going to charge. Some of them overcharge, right? So sometimes you do like a very minor indiscretion, and then you're going to get the book thrown at you because that city or area or whatever, they value the order and the structure that comes with it. Maybe you go too far, I don't know. But he has the discretion to do what he thinks is right here. And he's setting a precedent, and he's setting a groundwork, and the criminals see that, and then they, like exactly what you said, this is a micro or a macro level, but now on the micro level, it's like, oh, my neighbor has a Trump sign in his yard, which is a bold move for someone living in LA, right? But my neighbor is walking outside with a MAGA hat. Well, why don't I just go jump him, you know? Why don't I take care of that myself, right? Because these people are insurrectionists, and they're evil, and they're white, and they're the devil, right?
Well, also, what President Biden had to say the other day, too, about that.
Oh, yeah, we're the most extreme in the history of the United States.
Of course. I also don't understand how he's able to still have power, considering he's already been thrown out of one, maybe two other positions in other cities.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you do? You just fail up when you're the left? You can just keep failing, get thrown out, and you go find a new and better, shinier position where you keep enacting terror?
Well, look at the people that come out of San Francisco. You got VP Harris, and now you got DA
Nancy Pelosi.
VP Harris, by the way, used to throw black men in prison all the time, and nobody wants to talk about that.
Kamala was tough on crime. I like that about her, all right? It was always wrong when the right attacked her for being tough on crime because she was doing the right thing, damn it. Frankly.
Pop off, Connor.
Pot is bad. Go to jail for it.
Well, what we do know for sure is LA is just going downhill. Hope the best for Dave Chappelle, too. That guy is... I'm interested to see what he's going to say. But I think he's going to say it in a comedic way. He's going to go on stage somewhere else, and it's going to be heartfelt, but it's also he's going to find a way to...
I hope he says something serious.
Yeah.
I think he needs to sober up a little bit for this and really hit hard and call out these idiots for what they're doing and not make light of it. This isn't a light situation.
Right.
You're putting other people in jeopardy.
It's not like he got slapped by Will Smith.
And I'm hoping
right?
he
This
brings
is-
the
this is
hammer.
serious.
Yeah.
Well, we saw that Dave has the ability to do that and make you feel real things outside of just, humor. I don't know if you watched the last special they put out on Netflix. I think it was called Sticks and Stones.
Yeah.
And he went into this whole kind of monologue or soliloquy about a trans person that he met that he was close friends with who ended up killing themselves.
Very good
It was
story.
incredibly
Heartbreaking.
powerful and incredibly emotional. So I think Dave is going to look at this from a very sober standpoint and realize the deep societal implications that all of this has. Because if you're not even free to tell a joke about somebody, then you're not free to speak at all, really, at the end of the day. So it's terrifying, and I wish Dave the best.
And it just exposes just the moral rot and decay in society when we can't even go to a comedy show or a concert or something that's supposed to be fun and lighthearted and just kind of enjoy after a long week. We can't even do that without somebody crazy like that storming the stage with a weapon and getting off scotch-free.
No,
It's
we've
crazy.
lost everything.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, talk about the Young Women's Leadership Summit. I'll give you another promo code for that. That is coming up next month, and then we're going to go over the school board watch list. Don't go anywhere.
And I hope you're filled with courage and conviction, clarity, and a little bit of wisdom. Know that we at Turning Point USA, we have your back.
Back to TPUSA Live. We got Connor Clegg, Madison McClean, Lily Standley. I'm Jon Root. We talked a little bit earlier that we got to go over the school board watch list, and we're going to start with this one. But before we get into that, YWLS that you just saw, tpusa.com/YWLS. Use promo code JOHN. I guess you can use the dude's promo code. Get a nice little discount. But if you want to, Isabel, Morgan, Poplitics, Paige, Aaron,
Kendall,
so
Jordan.
many codes. Save your money, ladies. Come to YWLS.
Go to Charlie. Or Charlie. You could. Decide between John and Charlie. Charlie's a longer name. Save some time. Use John. Sorry, Charlie. Don't tell him that, please. All right, let's start with this. Portland School District. Portland Public Schools District is implementing the Oregon Menstrual Dignity Act. So that was signed into law in 2021. This makes menstrual products available in all restrooms in every single Portland public school.
I'm
Like
so
all
glad.
restrooms?
I'm
All
so
of them.
glad Kate Brown is focusing on the important issues facing Oregon, like, the homeless crisis in Portland and homicide basically doubling since last year in Portland. It's
terrible.
I'm glad her priorities are on straight.
Also, if you're going to do some sort of menstruation act, why does it not include any sort of education on menstruation or helping girls actually understand the
does,
health to their
actually.
It does?
Yeah. So, well, not in the way that you're thinking that it should.
Uh-oh. Like not
right?
practical.
Right. No. So I was reading about this this morning for Charlie's show, and with this act and with the implementation of this act comes a new guidebook for teachers, right, and a curriculum for teachers. It's for the teachers to learn for themselves, and then also how they should teach, right? So it tells them about how to properly gender people and how to address a boy, a young man who claims that he's menstruating, and there's a very delicate way to go about it. I didn't care enough to listen because I think it's absurd, but they had an FAQ section in there, and one of the FAQs was, do men menstruate?
Oh, so after all that,
Right.
then the
Well, and it's like it is a frequently asked question, probably by a lot of biology and science teachers, and so they had to kind of do this mental gymnastics act to explain how, yes, of course men menstruate, you bigot.
Yeah, so it has nothing to do with actual menstruation education, which is actually pretty valuable and should be taught to a certain level at a certain age properly, but instead it's just how to gender people. That has nothing to... We know who menstruates. It's not complicated.
It's not hard to figure out.
Very simple.
This is how they explain it. Dispensers have been installed in all elementary and middle school girls' restrooms, and more will be installed in all remaining bathrooms, including boys'
Those
restrooms.
girls don't even have periods.
Yeah,
That's what I was
they're
thinking.
not
You're
menstruating
not
at this
menstruating.
point.
You might menstruate once you're maybe 10, and that's fairly young. But
Right.
but high school is
What's the
most
point?
common. Elementary and middle school is just to prove a point and just to cause an agenda. And you know what's funny? Those little boys are going to use and abuse and waste those products because they're going to be like, oh, those are funny. Throw them at the
Sticking 'em in
teacher.
their
Stick it on the
noses.
ceiling,
Oh, yeah.
doing all this nonsense with it. It's going to be a waste of resources. These people are so dumb.
And finally, they said instructions
Oh
for
my
how to
God.
use tampons and pads will be posted in all bathrooms.
Great.
Even the men's bathroom.
When you enact ridiculous policies that make people miserable and are rooted in hatred towards each other. You go crazy and you're angry and you're constantly pissed off and trying to picket something. So therefore the air is sour. Makes perfect sense.
Amen. That was well said, Lori.
Thank you, Connor Clegg.
And then God bless some of the solid constitutionalists up there and people that love America, and there's some good pastors up there too. I know a few people that live up there, and it's tough. And I think there's plenty of times too where we want to just leave the fight, but there's a lot of people that are up there that are trying to do whatever they can. And it seems like times where you go up to Portland, it's like, is this place completely lost? It's like, well, maybe not because of people like that. So hopefully they're able to fight against stuff like this, because all kids are learning is some revisionist history. They are learning some sort of different science and biology, and they're learning about basically a cult that they need to be a part of, and that sex and gender come down to feelings. It's insanity. This next one here is Kutztown School District in Pennsylvania. Kutztown. Thank you. Kutztown.
Is it in Switzerland?
No, Kutztown. Big summer blowout here. So there's just over 1,300 students for the school year, and that's spread out about among 4 schools. On December 6, 2021, this is what the school board voted in. 5-4 to adopt its new educational equity policy. So obviously a lot of universities are doing this. You got a lot of elementary schools that are jumping in on this as well. So they voted to make sure kids align with each other's pronouns, and if kids don't use the proper pronouns, they're going to be punished by the school. So obviously no longer it's just like, oh, you hurt my feelings, here's a law.
It's not enough for you to be able to just say whatever you want about yourself and your biology, but now you have to force others to reinforce your insane reality that is not rooted in any sort of truth, and now you're going to be policing other people's speech because they don't believe in your twisted reality. Got it. Okay.
I remember when I was a kid, and I didn't like people. You know, I had like my natural rivals and my nemesis and stuff, because that was fun when you were a kid, right?
You still do, Connor.
Yeah, that's not true. I love everybody. But anyway, if this were in place when I was in school, I would find whoever I didn't like and be like, hey, he misgendered me. And then I'm like, oh, well, sorry, we got to punish you, because it's my truth as a woman, obviously. You know, and you can't deny me my truth.
You can't.
So yeah, I mean, you give kids like this weird kind of power over authority and law and structure and something as simple as biology. They're not going to use it correctly.
I hope not.
Right?
They better abuse it. That's like what I told all my track teammates when you're now able to identify as whatever you want and go get a new scholarship. All the guys running track should have marched into the administration office and said, hey, I'm a dude today and I want a scholarship and a spot on the team because I can now qualify for that. So I hope that these kids go around doing the same thing.
And see, there's so many close votes here too. Like just 5-4 for this, and then they voted 5-4 to allow Genderqueer, this book, to remain in the high school library. And the decision was made after parental complaints in November, but a committee was formed to evaluate the book, and this is what superintendent had to say in an email. The committee's determination was that the book met the objective standards of the material selection process, and the board voted to affirm the committee's recommendation. So clearly too, it's like, we got this equity policy, and then we got books here. This is going to be a part of the curriculum, and it's all coming together. And I think, unfortunately, there's so many cowardly people in school boards. And like yesterday, Charlie did a fantastic job saying there's a problem with the Scottsdale Unified School District. We're not just going to talk about it on the podcast. We're not just going to talk about it on live. We're going to go set up, and we're going to rally the troops and say this is what's going on. Here's how we protect the kids. Here's how we protect the parents. And we need strong people in these school boards. But unfortunately, I don't want to make a evaluation of the people that I don't know. But here, I guarantee you, there's people that just aren't courageous, and they're like, I don't know, it might not be that bad.
No, they're cowards, clearly. They're just cowards. So I bet you, if they were able to vote the way they wanted to vote without any sort of
Fear of retribution.
Yeah, then I have a feeling it would have been more of like a 2 to 10 kind of situation.
Well, and I feel like this is just where we need strong parents standing up, and I'm so encouraged to see so many parents that are standing up, because when the left starts to infiltrate the minds of our kids, that has to be the line. When they start going after the most susceptible of us, that's when they're going to be able to infiltrate anything. Like if they can get through to the kids, they can get through anywhere. And so we need strong parents that are going to stand up for their children, that are going to run for school board, and that are going to get elected and stop these policies from being injected into our children's minds and just brainwashing them and confusing them. And they're just kids. Let them be kids. Let them have their innocence. Let them go outside, scrape up their knees, climb trees, break their arms, be tough. We're breeding a society of weak people with these policies. And gay people, too.
And obviously we don't know everybody that's a part of the school board, but we do know one person that calls themselves a pastor and has been signing off on these in this school district. So we're going to show up a picture of Dennis Ritter. This is Dennis Ritter. So like, once again too, it's like, I think at times we've talked about it on the show so much, you're going to look to the church for honesty and truth and some sort of foundation that's rooted in the Word of God. And then it's just like, if you're going to try to justify this stuff as a pastor, you're not only leading your congregation astray, but the next generation, these other parents, and it's just all crumbling down.
Yeah, see, that's a really slippery slope, because, you know, some people say that the left wants to get rid of the church, the left wants to get rid of all sorts of religion, and it's not true. The left would like more than anything a state-sponsored church where they can say things in the name of God, but they be state policies and state ideas, state ideology. So that's really dangerous to have a pastor who clearly isn't aware, or maybe is doing it deliberately, against the teachings of the Bible I'd be reading. I don't know about y'all, but it seems like kids learning about queer ideology is not found in my book. And that's very concerning. People need to be keen to that type of rhetoric, and they need to publicly call out those officials.
Yeah, I mean, it was Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Thank you, Connor Clegg.
Philosopher
the one-liners.
All right, so we're going to move on into one last thing. But before that, if you want some more information about these school boards or any crazy school boards across the country, you can go to schoolboardwatchlist.org. We got a message from our friends at Patriot Mobile. Be back for one last thing.
All right, guys, you have signed up, right? You've joined freedomsquare.com. If you haven't, why not? This should have happened a decade ago. How did somebody not think of this earlier? If you're a business owner, we have a business directory to promote your business to patriots across the nation. So if you want to buy American, if you want to sell American, we have a business directory. Whatever it is, go now.
Join us in the fight for freedom. Welcome to Freedom Square.
Welcome back to TPUSA Live. We're at TPUSA HQ. We got Madison, McClean, Lily Standley, Connor Clegg. I'm Jon Root. So usually in one last thing, we got one last thing. We're changing it up a little bit.
No way.
3 last things.
Anarchy. Anarchy.
That's what we're doing here. If the left can break the rules, we can break the rules once on this show, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Come on. So there's some breaking news. We were wondering, when is Dave Chappelle going to break his silence? So we got news from Fox News that Dave Chappelle has broken his silence on the attack and said, I got smacked by a homeless guy with leaves in his hair. He also said he wanted to speak with this attacker, which I think speaks to a lot of who Dave Chappelle is, and he wants to talk about his attacker's mental illness. He also said that he is upset that his attacker isn't charged. So,
I would be too if I were him. If I was on stage and I was Dave Chappelle and somebody tried to murder me or hurt me really bad, I'd be upset.
Yeah, it
the
seems
guy,
like a soft response.
Yeah.
You don't need to talk to him. You need to just go march into the police department and be like, I'm going to burn this place down and dox all of you if you don't put this man in jail. That's how you do it. Do what they do. Anarchy, baby. It seems to work for the left.
And I hope he has a conversation. I hope this conversation isn't like blown up on television. I hope it's not just some live stream or some special.
Because then it'll all seem fake to me. I don't want that.
Yeah, because basically this kid just wants clout. This kid, I brought up I forget what his rapper name is.
Oh.
But it's like no_name_trapper or something like that on Spotify.
Something genius.
Obviously.
Absolutely
Super articulate.
And he had a song called Dave Chappelle.
Oh.
Really? So like a lot of this just led to...
I'm going to stab him. I'm going to find him and I'm going to stab him. Is that how it goes?
So I hope he doesn't and then his name's Isaiah Lee. Thank you for that. Producer's doing a good job back there. Before we get into some of our Culture Point winners of this month, make sure we highlight some incredible people, including someone on the TPUSA Live team along the lines of Dave Chappelle having a conversation with somebody. I think the world we live in right now, it is so crazy, and we're having a ton of conversations about abortion.
Yeah.
We're having a ton of conversations about Roe v. Wade. And I think we were talking about before the show, Lily and I was like, have you had any conversations with people on the other side? Has it been somewhat cordial? Obviously, there's plenty of times where it's just like we want to tell people, like, that is such like an idiotic statement, or like, how do you really believe that? But are you having some of those conversations with people? Is it like fruitful at all?
So I've made a conscious effort this time around, now that it's back in the news cycle, to try to engage in fruitful conversations if people are willing to have them. 10 times out of 10, they are not willing to have them, and that's not on me. It is always on them. They resort to name calling, all sorts of fallacies. They get angry. It's not fruitful. But so no, unfortunately, I have not been able to have actual meaningful conversations. The most meaningful conversations I have been having are people in my life who have had abortions and who are very vocal about the traumatizing after effects that nobody's talking about. They regret it. Every single woman in my life, and I know quite a few of them who have unfortunately been put in a situation where they had an abortion, and all of them, 10 out of 10, say that they regret it and that the effects that it has held in their life, they were not informed on. They did not know the emotional and spiritual turmoil that was going to haunt them every day since then. And they wish, all of them unanimously have said that they wish that more people would talk about the effects afterwards. So that's been the most productive thing, is I think we need to shift our focus a little bit as conservatives away from the act in general and really start to also expand upon the repercussions and how to, with love and compassion, address that situation and how to help women heal and move forward past it.
And it's interesting to me, some of the conversations I've had is how just emotional it starts getting. Because
it's all emotional.
I think the way that, sometimes there's people out there and they're just like, I just want to own the libs. And it's like, sure, like that can be effective in some ways, and then other ways where it's just like, this is such an emotional topic for people and they are so lost in their emotion. We always talking about have a logical conversation versus an emotional conversation. And a lot of people are just like, you're not going to change somebody's mind in one conversation. No. But there's some people that are going to keep coming back. A good buddy of mine, I shared screenshots of conversations I had, and he's like, you know what you need to think of is how this person's searching for answers without even knowing it. So they keep reaching out to you. Like I had somebody.
It's subconscious.
They
because
replied,
they need the truth. It's innate in their being. They need to know the truth.
Because they know there's something wrong about this. So when someone replied and they said, didn't God murder his son? And like for me, I look at that and I'm like, that is so theologically unsound. But I'm like, let's have a conversation. Like I can easily break down why that's not true and why that does not correlate to abortion whatsoever. And it ended up ending with somebody like calling me, I can't believe you need to check your white privilege. Like that's how it ends. And for me, I'm just kind of like, this is another silly thing, but it's not going to hit me to my core because I know it's false.
It's so terrible. The abortion thing is really like this one thing that really gets people up in arms because it is such a fundamental misunderstanding of life and value and God's order. And so I think that's why it enacts such an emotional response for people, because it is heavy. And people, conservatives, Christians, they say that the abortion rate inside the church is the same as outside of the church. Like this is a very common and widespread issue. So you have to try to not remove emotions from it because they're valuable in this sense, and it is an emotional problem because people don't realize the turmoil that it's causing, but to talk logically about, even not from a religious point, but scientifically where life begins and so on and so forth. So if people could walk back the emotion a little bit and hone it in, it could be more productive.
Look, the abortion is simply a really, really dreadful symptom of the left's larger kind of licentiousness agenda here, right? So it's like, it's the promotion of sleeping around. It's the idea that your actions don't have consequences, and that if you screw up, then you can just, you get rid of it. You can change your mind whenever you want, no matter how consequential the moment may be, and no matter what the price may be, right? Be it a human life, which it always is when it comes to abortion, and then later your own mental stability, right? So that's why the left is so passionately defending this ability to murder children, right? Is that they don't want to lose their ability to have this loose, open, and quote-unquote free licentious society. Because like we said just earlier, the moment that you have an ordered, structured, civilized society that values monogamy and relationships and Western values and biblical values, then you don't really have control over them anymore, right? So none of that works if you're not able to kill your baby.
No, I'm
right?
glad you brought up the idea of freedom, because that's been something that somebody said to me in my DMs is, well, you always scream about freedom. And I said, well, listen, freedom is the liberty to be able to pursue virtue without restraints,
That's
right?
exactly right.
Freedom is not being able to do whatever you want at any given time without consequences. If it was rape, incest, murder, that would all be okay within freedom, but it's not, because there's consequences to that type of situation. Same thing with abortion. So no, it has nothing to do with freedom. You don't have the freedom to take somebody else's life away.
Yeah, you can't say like I want to abort a baby and that's healthcare, and
That's
then say,
freedom.
Like, and
It's
then
like,
say I want to rape somebody and that's just love making. That's my own idea.
Right,
of it.
right.
It's like,
Well, and I think the other thing too that we as conservatives need to do a better job of is not shying away from having these conversations, because a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this, like I don't want to be called names. I don't want to engage in people that are, I know, number one, their minds are not going to be changed, and they're just going to resort to calling me a racist or, you know, all of these things that are not true. So it just seems counterproductive. But I think we as conservatives need to do a better job of engaging with these conversations and going about it with grace and truth, because there is a way to do that. We can speak the truth and love to somebody, and we are not loving somebody if we're not telling them the truth. At the end of the day, we have to tell them the truth, and it's so critical that we as conservatives are more engaged with those conversations, and I think that we should do a better job of doing that.
Amen to that. Well, it's time to make sure we recognize some people that have been award winners at TPUSA HQ. We always give out these culture points. We always get emails every single month, like who's doing great at these 3 specific things. First off, we have grassroots humility, and these are the framework of TPUSA. We got warrior spirit and persistent innovation. So grassroots humility, every single day, we approach our work with humility, integrity, and grace. We recognize that everyone on the TPUSA team is integral to our mission. And just like everybody here at TPUSA Live, there's a lot of people that come together and make sure this show works. And it's not just the people on the production team. We got people on the media team. We got people that are in the field, and we got faith. And every single person here, they're coming together. It's like, here's how we can tell good stories. Here's the truth. Here's what's going on. Warrior spirit, obviously, Charlie always talks about being happy warriors. Yeah. And we got a lot of happy warriors here at HQ that we're going to honor. And persistent innovation, obviously we got to figure out how to have conversations and be innovative about it, and figure out how we can get on campuses, have events that's going to invite people in that might not just be staunch conservatives. So here's some of our January winners. First off, we got Camille Setagast. Hey, let's go. Annalise Alexander, and then Raul Sainz.
Annie.
Let's go. So that's from January. Congratulations to every single one of them.
Raul.
And then in February, here's our winners from there. Our very own Aubrey Leitch.
Yay!
Would you look at
Producer
that?
Aubrey.
Producer Aubrey does a
And
great
Precious
job here.
Dylan.
And then Dylan Parsons, Warrior Spirit
Warrior
Award.
Spirit Wednesday, man.
Dylan is a ram.
Dylan's
Warrior
a
Spirit
king.
Wednesday. You always just come around and he's
the
always got
best.
this infectious smile, like
Yeah.
him and Aubrey do. And then Calacia, Ritter also as well. A lot of people that just absolutely love what they do, and they make sure they make a difference in people's lives no matter what they're doing. And that's what I love about some people here that we're going to continue to honor, is they know their role and they're going to do it well, and they're going to make sure. Finally, March, we got Taylor Scoravent. Oh, excuse me. All right.
Scornavaco. Angelo.
And then Angelo Fazio. Shout out to
Angelo is
him.
such a stud.
And then Mitchell Manley.
Also a stud.
Good group.
And then I want to do a huge shout out to Angelo too, because obviously a lot of people tune into Breakaway as well, or follow us on social media. Angelo does a great job. He helps produce that show, book some of our guests. Everybody works really, really hard. And I'm glad we get to honor some people here on TPUSA Live, because, man, this place has grown so much even since I joined. Fun fact, I joined on Insurrection Day. January 6th,
day of work.
January 6th was my first day at work here, and that was bonkers. But the place has grown. The place has grown a lot.
Only up from there, at least.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I mean, even in my 2 years here, I'm about to hit 2 years, and it's been remarkable to just see the growth and like the physical growth. I mean, like literally, we went from having too many desks to not even close to enough desks. Now we've got multiple buildings.
And nowhere for me to sit. I didn't have a desk, and I was nomadic for a while, and so I always had somewhere to go for a little bit. But then it got to the point where like there weren't even enough chairs. Look, I've been here for 4 years. I'm the old man of this entire group here. And all this building before
I
it
appreciate
had,
that, Connor.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.
I saw this building before it even had floors in it, and this actually used to be an old bank. And what we've been able to take this and transform it into, not just physically, but like the team, the people, it's great.
And a huge shout out to Charlie for that too. I mean, that must be amazing interacting with Charlie every single day and almost like, hey, can we take a step back, have a 30,000 foot view and like realize how it started in this garage. And then now it's like, look, we have multiple buildings, like you said. We have so many people we're trying to hire. If you want to join our team here, you can always go to tpusa.com/careers. Always looking for some great people.
The best team to be on. It really is. I started Chapter in 2017 at my college, and to see how much it's grown just over the last few years, 5 years, it's been amazing. So
very cool.
Very, very cool stuff. Best team to be on.
Yeah, it's absolutely
And
fantastic.
events are great. If you want to dip your toes in without doing anything serious, come to an event.
There you
Come
go.
dip your toes in Donald Trumpet's ass.
Woo! Benny said I'll find my soulmate, Daddy Don, or somebody like.
Well, your soulmate's going to be a meme lord, so congratulations, Lily.
Oh, no.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to all the ladies out there.
Love
Bye.
you, Mom.
This is your brain. This is your brain on socialism. Any questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily, powered by Turning Point USA. Today's May 6, 2022, and Anno Domini. Today's top headlines: a new book is out claiming that President Trump wanted to launch a missile strike at cartels into Mexico to destroy the fentanyl drug labs. Amazing. Next, the FDA has restricted use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine over blood clot risks. Oh, that's interesting. Third, conservative app Public Square announcing fundraiser for pro-life pregnancy centers. Fantastic. And finally, a gaming journalist has decided to ask the question, just pose the question of whether or not people should kill Supreme Court justices who may have returned Roe v. Wade. All this and more ahead, Human Events Daily.
You've all been seeing it, reading it, hearing it, border security. Every nation has not only the right, but the absolute duty to protect its borders and its citizens. A nation without borders is a nation not at all. Without borders, we have the reign of chaos, crime, cartels, and believe it or not, coyotes.
So President Trump, we know, obviously no fan of the drug cartels. I don't know, by the way, if President Trump has ever watched Breaking Bad. It does occur to me that I should probably ask about that, because I feel like that would be something that he's into. I know he's a diehard fan. I know he's a Pulp Fiction fan, but I don't know if he's ever seen Breaking Bad or Sicario or any of these movies that are specifically in TV shows that are about this border crisis and dig into the cartel issue. But a new book that's come out, and the New York Times has a story, Maggie Haberman, and it's Secretary of Defense, former Secretary of Defense, Esper, talking about this incident. He calls it an incident. He's very, very shocked. And of course, the New York Times is very, very shocked that President Trump suggested using a missile strike, and potentially a covert missile strike. I'm not really sure how you would do a covert missile strike, because I don't know how else you'd be using missiles here in our hemisphere, but is what he was asking about, to go after the fentanyl drug labs on the other side of the border and actually start taking it to the cartels. So apparently his idea was, why don't we just bomb the cartels? Remember, this is the same president who suggested that why don't we just nuke the hurricanes at one point, which I still think is an option that we should keep on the table, right? But in all seriousness, let's actually think about this for a minute. The New York Times lost their mind that President Trump would suggest conducting a missile strike, whether it be a drone strike or whatever type of missiles, probably drones, to go after organizations that are actually killing tens of thousands of Americans, that are responsible for the highest level of drug overdoses this country has ever seen in the entire existence of the United States of America. to use the military to actually defend the American people. Esper lost his mind. Esper couldn't believe it. He said, no, right? I guess Esper and the DOD and the Pentagon and the New York Times think it's only acceptable to conduct drone strikes on weddings in Pakistan and funerals in Yemen, to go after, and we're getting all these reports now that the U.S. military and the U.S. intelligence community is giving targeting data to the Ukrainians that they're using against Russian warships and potentially even Russian, what we would call HVTs, high-value targets, so generals and VIPs and that sort of thing. And then they're saying, oh, we didn't even know that that was happening. So you can use that when it comes to a nuclear power that you're trying to wag the dog into World War III over. But when one guy comes along, one president, and says, why don't we bomb these people that are actually killing Americans? Oh, no, can't possibly do that. Yeah, this is the commander-in-chief. He's elected, not Esper, not the New York Times, not anyone else in the chain of command of the military is elected to office other than the president of the United States. And there's a reason for that. He's the commander-in-chief, none of you. I remember when the last guy, when President Obama was in office, and he handed over 5 war criminals, Taliban generals from Guantanamo Bay, who were there when I was there, handed them over for a traitor named Bo Bergdahl. And we were told, oh, well, it's what the commander-in-chief wants, so we got to do it. This is one of the biggest scandals. Not only, number one, obviously, it would be a good policy to use military action against the cartels and protect our border. Clearly, obviously. And by the way, this is something that you could probably do in conjunction with the government of Mexico, because they don't like the cartels either. But we've gotten to a point with these cartels and the cartel wars that are going on in that area of North Mexico and Sonora, where they're controlling vast swaths of territory that the government of Mexico can't even exert full control over because that's cartel land. You can't use the military for that. You can't use the IC for that. No. Right? Go watch Narcos. Pablo Escobar, right? But when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to Russia, when it comes to Yemen, Pakistan, all of these places all around the world, Somalia, that's perfectly fine for the U.S. military. That's the job of the U.S. military. Conducting the agenda of the World Economic Forum in Davos, I guess, but not actually defending the American people.
I would definitely take the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. This is a vaccine that works, and it only requires 1 dose. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine uses a particular what we call vaccine platform, and you inject it into the body sees that protein, makes it a good immune response against the entire virus. It's 72% effective in preventing you from getting moderate to severe disease, but virtually 100% protective against hospitalizations and death, as proven by this trial that was done.
So I've got this headline. I want to be very careful about this, not, mincing any words. I'm not making up anything. I'm not speaking out of turn. This is from Fox Business. The FDA has put new limits on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine due to a rare blood clotting condition. Health officials have detected cases of the blood clotting condition, TTS, 9 of which have been fatal. Okay, that means someone died. 9 people, specifically, died. The FDA has revised its emergency authorization to sharply limit the use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine to a rare but potentially fatal blood clotting condition called thrombosis, also known as TTS. Only individuals who are 18 years of age and older who would otherwise not receive a COVID-19 vaccine due to availability or their choice should now take the J&J one-shot regimen, which means they are restricting it to people who are under 18. The FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research put out a statement on Thursday. Our actions reflect our updated analysis of the risk of TTS, blood clotting, following administration of this vaccine, and limits the use of this vaccine to certain individuals. They state we've been closely monitoring the Janssen COVID-19 vaccine and occurrence of TTS following its administration and have used updated information from our safety surveillance systems to revise the EUA. That's the Emergency Use Authorization. So people died from blood clotting, and the FDA, working with the CDC Advisory Committee, have now put out new guidelines to restrict that to people under 18. So that's children. And here's my issue with that, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I know scientists. I know microbiologists. There's one microbiologist I know very, very well. But when it comes to this stuff, we can look at the data ourselves. We can go to ResearchGate. We can go online. We can find this stuff. We can look at studies. We can look at cause and effect. And we can link things. But prior to this day, if you tried to talk about this on this program, if I tried to talk about this on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, you would be taken down. You'd be censored. You'd be put in the penalty box. You might even have your account taken away for suggesting something that is now the official statement of the government. So are we just supposed to memory hole all the things and all of the issues that came up over the past 18 months, right? Before the government told us that there was a problem with this particular vaccine for these particular people, and be very clear about that. But we weren't even allowed to ask the question. And isn't that the bigger issue? That you've got the government coming in here, and you've got cities like Washington, D.C., where I'm at right now, where there are still places today that you can't go without a negative COVID-19 test or without a proof of vaccination because it was mandated. Because it was mandated to live in the city, to participate in city life, right, without having this vaccine. There are people I know that are applying for jobs that can't even get the job if they don't have the vaccine. But now the government says, oh, by the way, there might be an issue with this vaccine, but only if you're under 18. That does not spark confidence. And what it also does is show us that potentially some of the people that are identifying these issues who had been written off and silenced and attacked perhaps were onto something. And maybe, just maybe, there is a massive financial incentive to keep these instances as quiet as possible.
You know, we've had plenty of those moments. We received all the threats in the book. We've had the angry Twitter journalists. But at the end of the day, it's all been fuel for us to continue giving power back to the people, pushing against oppression in all of its forms, pushing against this corporate oligarchy that's in bed with big government, that frames this messaging in order to hurt the average Americans that do not share their values.
So all the craziness that we're seeing lately coming out with this Roe v. Wade, not only the decision, but the leak, everything that led to it, these threats against the justices and their lives. But now we're also seeing companies that are coming forward. And this, to me, like if you're someone who's on the pro-life side, like I am, to see companies like Amazon saying that they will pay their employees to have abortions, that they will give you money, something like $4,000 to travel if you live in a red state, to travel to another state to have an abortion procedure conducted, right? It's insane. And by the way, we know what this is about, right? It's not about women's rights. Amazon didn't care about that. It's about Amazon's corporate interests. Why? Because if you have to go on maternity leave, if you have a baby, then they still have to pay for you to go on that maternity leave. But if you don't go on leave, number one, they don't have to pay. And number two, you're still working on the line. You're still working in the warehouse. You're still driving the little vans around, making your deliveries like you should. They want you to make sure that you're going to work. It's not about your rights, quote unquote. It's about their interests. It's about what's good for Amazon and their bottom line. That's what they care about. But there is a company that is fighting back. And in full disclosure, this is a company that we do work with here at Human Events Daily, that we are in partnership with. But Michael Seifert, and we just played his quote there, he did not reach out to us. We decided to do this story because we saw this huge announcement. Public Square, the app, has announced a fundraiser for pro-life pregnancy centers. Corporate America has shifted away from the values that tens of millions of Americans hold dear, remarked Public Square CEO. In response to this statement and the potential overturn of Roe v. Wade, Public Square will be hosting a Day for Life on Wednesday, May 11th, at participating Public Square businesses throughout the country. So they're starting with places called the Coffee Co., the Village SD, Nini's Deli, dozens of other businesses around the country will be donating a portion of their proceeds to local pregnancy centers. And then it says, if you are a Public Square business and would like to participate, please email pr@publicsquare.com. So what is Public Square? Public Square is a company that allows a listing of other companies, right? So they're a directory service. It's an app you download. It's super easy to use. I'm not going to give you the full pitch, but that's the way it works, right? You download it and you say, hey, I want to find, a restaurant that only uses locally sourced food, or I want to find a coffee shop that stood up to the mandates, that type of thing, or a bank that isn't going to cancel somebody because, they have different political beliefs, or, whichever situation it is that you're looking for, whatever kind of business. But now they're actually taking a stand. They're going to say, look, if there are companies out there and corporations that are going to be super woke, or that are going to be pro-abortion, like Amazon is clearly being here. This is pro-abortion. This isn't about pro-choice, right? You don't get the money if you choose to keep your kid, right? Their choice is you get the money if you want to go have an abortion. So make sure that's very clear. I'm going to say that again, right? Amazon gives you up to $4,000 to have an abortion, but they're not giving you $4,000 to keep your baby. So understand, it's not about pro-choice. It's about pro-abortion. Yeah, fact check me on that. But what Public Square is doing, Public Square is saying it doesn't have to be this way. We can have families and still have companies. We can have companies that support people having families. And we want to do that. And so what a pro-life pregnancy center is, it's idea that we know that life is crazy and the world is a messed up place. That's just the way it is. And sometimes there are people who get pregnant, right? Women, obviously, who get pregnant. I want to do that whole pregnancy people thing. There are women who get pregnant, though, and it might be unplanned. They might be at risk. There might be a million reasons to want to come to a pregnancy center. But it's a place where women can come to get the help they need, to get the medical services they need, free of charge, and no questions asked. There's no judgment. There's just help. That's the point of a pro-life pregnancy center, is the idea that women can come in, get the services they need, and you're supporting them and you're supporting the children. So it's not just a law restricting abortion. It's actually proactively helping women, helping their kids, and helping families.
You guys spent some time yesterday talking about what you think are the extreme wings of the Republican Party. Do you think the progressive activists that are now planning protests outside some of the justices' houses are extreme?
Peaceful protest? No, peaceful protest is not extreme.
Some of these justices have young kids. Their neighbors are not all public figures. So would the president think about waiving off activists that want to go into residential neighborhoods in Virginia and Maryland?
Peter, look, I think our view here is that peaceful protest, there's a long history in the United States and the country of that. And we certainly encourage people to keep it peaceful and not resort to any level of violence.
So amid all the insanity, in terms of the response to the potential, really likely, I think at this point, likely overturning Roe v. Wade, a gaming journalist on Twitter named Simon Gwynn, British guy, by the way, is questioning whether you would kill Supreme Court Justice, or whether you should kill Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito given the chance. And I'm going to read you, and be very clear what I'm doing right here. I want to read you his tweet. I want to read you what he said. He said, an interesting real-life trolley problem in America now. If you had the chance to kill Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, the two oldest right-wing Supreme Court justices, should you do it while Biden can get his nominees to replace them confirmed? Then followed up with, it's an interesting abstract question, but becomes a real conundrum if, say, you're terminally ill and have little to lose yourself, but know that it could save many women's lives in the future. He doesn't explain how killing Supreme Court justices would save lives of women in some sort of twisted logic that he's using there. But he posted this stuff. He then took it down and said, oh, it's just a thought experiment. Twitter has no problem with that. Calling for someone to directly rise up and assassinate 2 Supreme Court justices and then arguing, oh, no, just a thought experiment. I was just kidding around. You silly guys. What are you thinking? This is the problem right here. Blue-checked, lib journalist, Ukraine flag flying proudly in his profile there on Twitter. No problem with saying, kill your political opponents. And isn't that the problem right there? Isn't that the exact problem that we've been dealing with? 2020, the summer of rage that we don't even talk about. The largest mass riots in U.S. history, city after city after city. The killing fields of our own major cities with the homicide rates completely out of control in this country. Not a peep about it. Not a single, it doesn't trend on Twitter. Nightly news doesn't talk about it on the mainstream media. No, they want to talk about stuff that's going on 5,000 miles away. They don't talk about what's going on in your backyard or in your neighborhood. And you got guys like this that pop off and say, well, maybe we should just kill our political opponents. I'm just kidding. It's just a thought experiment. Look, taking a stand against political violence means taking a stand against all political violence, from assassinations to punching to war to any type of political violence. If you say you're against it, you have to be against all of it. And the minute you open that door, the minute you say, well, it's okay because they're a bad person, that's when you've taken the discussion to a place that it should never be. We can discuss things. We can talk about things. We can argue. We can debate. And that's the point of having freedom of speech. All right, and that's it for us, Human Events Daily, for today, and ends this really banner week for us. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We really, really appreciate it now more than ever. Remember, of course, our promise, our oath, our solemn vow to all of you is to be good, be brief, be gone. Your homework for us, leave us just one of your 5-star reviews on Apple, Spotify, any one of your podcast apps, and share this out with a normie friend. What do we talk about today? Former Defense Secretary Esper claiming that Trump wanted to launch missile strikes at cartels in New Mexico to destroy the drug labs. Next, the FDA restricting the use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine over blood clot risks. Third, conservative app Public Square announcing this is so special, announcing a fundraiser for pro-life pregnancy centers. And finally, pro-abortion groups calling for protests outside Supreme Court justices' homes. And you had that crazy journalist down in the UK calling for killing the justices if you didn't like their maneuvers. All of this is going on. It's going to come to a head next week. But before we go, it's time for today's history break. Today, May 6, 1941, was the day that Joseph Stalin appointed himself premier of the Soviet Union, specifically his first government, and where he became the chairman of the Council of the People's Commissars. Now, World War II had already begun with the joint invasion of Poland by the Nazis and the Soviets. That was 1939. But this, just 1 month before the outbreak of Operation Barbarossa, when the brutal, murderous communist regime was facing off against the Wehrmacht. Remember, we have to understand what was going on in this world, in those bloodlands of Eurasia. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.
Hard to believe, I know, but it's true. They see you as a product. China is the blueprint for consolidating power. Down the rabbit hole you go. Are you paying attention now?
We are getting down to the wire for spots at Turning Point USA's Young Women's Leadership Summit. It is the biggest conference in the country for young conservative women. Here's the tea. The conference is from June 2nd to the 4th in Dallas, Texas, and we've got the biggest female conservative speakers in the movement, everyone from Kayleigh McEnany to Candace Owens. Go to tpusa.com/YWLS and use code POPLITICS to get 25% off your tickets. You can come to YWLS if you're still a student, or even if you haven't been a student for a long time, there are adult tickets available too. Only rule is you do have to be a woman, a biological one. Controversial these days, I know. For more information on the event, ticket packages, and what to expect, go to tpusa.com/YWLS and use code POPLITICS. I'm not going to lie to you. For pretty much my entire life, I have judged the crap out of women who want home births or natural births. Like, what kind of crunchy, hippy-dippy nonsense is going on there? You want to have a baby in your living room? No doctor floating around your little baby juices in a little kiddie pool by the TV willy-nilly? I mean, nothing about that has ever appealed to me. Until the pandemic. That's when I saw hospitals telling pregnant women that they had to give birth completely alone. They had to wear masks as they were in labor, literally pushing a human being out of their petunia. The only alternative was to give birth at home if they wanted any say in their birthing process at all. And I saw more and more women on social media discussing their birth plans and saying that they were getting a doula and having a baby Little House on the Prairie style. At least that's how I picture it in my head. Basically, I had been starting to warm up to the idea of home births. Kind of. And then I met this guy at a pro-life conference this year. And so we were just talking, getting to know each other. And he was telling me and some other friends about how his wife's experience went giving birth a few months earlier. He started saying that his wife had a pain-free birth, I am quoting him, and that she was laughing at one point in the middle of pushing. And I was like, whoa, okay, stop right there. What do you mean she had a pain-free birth? Like she had an amazing epidural? He goes, no drugs, nothing. She gave birth in one of those kiddie pools that I was just talking about, in their house. He said he was right there with her. It was amazing. And that she literally felt no labor pain, that the baby practically walked out. It was so easy and an amazing experience, he said, for both of them. So if you're like me, your jaw is probably on the floor, right? I think I asked this poor man 400 questions. And he told me that his wife learned everything from this woman on Instagram who teaches women to have pain-free birth. I went back to my hotel room and I started scrolling through this chick's Instagram for hours. I had never seen anything like it. And sure enough, there's videos on her page of home births where these women look like they're enjoying labor. How could this be? Is it actually possible to not feel any pain during birth? And if so, why haven't we been doing that the whole time? And what if something goes wrong in a home birth? Like, how safe is it? What even is a doula? And is it really necessary? We are going to answer all of these questions and more today with my guest, who not only is the woman behind the Pain-Free Birth account on Instagram, but she's also a wife, mother, birthing e-course designer, and certified doula. Please welcome Karen Welton to The Spillover. Karen, you're a doula, so you deliver babies for a living. Let me tell you, that sounds just like one of the most incredible jobs out there. How long have you been helping moms deliver babies?
I've been doing it for 9 years, ever since my daughter was born. So it is the most fulfilling, exciting. I just love it. I totally love it.
I mean, your expertise, which is what really grabbed my attention at first, is based on this idea of pain-free birth. It's literally your Instagram handle. And I just want to get into what that even means because, you know, labor is, I feel like, always portrayed as this super hard, super painful thing. You've got a screaming mom and doctors and the possibility of a C-section and all this. But your personal belief is that pain can be totally avoided during labor. So could you define what pain-free birth is to you? And does it mean that there is no pain involved at any point during birth?
That's a great question. And that's probably the top question I get, because most women obviously are pretty surprised. They're like, you must be crazy. That's not even possible. Birth is supposed to be painful. And that's honestly the narrative we've been fed, especially if we grew up in this Western culture of fear And we've been taught to believe throughout experiences, and whether it's your theology, your, or what your friends and family have experienced, or what you've seen in movies. Like, we always see movies portrayed as like scary and dramatic, just like you talked about. But when we really look at birth as a physiological process, as something our bodies were designed to do, if we look at every other physiological process that the body does naturally without interference, it's designed to do it without pain. So when we talk about digestion, breathing, blinking, all of these things that our body is designed to do without interference, it's capable of doing so without pain. Now, does that mean there's no discomfort? Does that mean it's not intense? No. I chose the name pain-free birth, not because I think every birth should be 100% pain-free. In most cases, there's discomfort, there is intensity, there may be contractions that are so strong they're painful. Even in my labors, I've experienced that. But throughout the majority of the labor, it's absolutely possible to have contractions, to have birth, to push the baby out without pain. And when I say pain, I don't mean you're not feeling anything. I don't mean it's like an epidural and you're like numb and you can't feel the sensation at all and you're disconnected from your body. What I mean is that you're not experiencing pain in the sense of when I say pain, it's a signal your body sends, that your brain sends you, that says there's something wrong, you're in danger. It's the fight or flight, right? You have to stop what you're doing. If you touch the stove and it's hot, pull your hand away. If you get bit by a dog, protect yourself. If you cut yourself, Band-Aid. That's pain, that's acute pain. But when we talk about birth, pain exists in birth for most women, especially, delivering in hospitals that have been taught to expect pain. And we do expect it. And what causes it is something entirely different. And so that's when I talk about the possibility of a pain-free birth, I'm saying that when you experience a contraction, you are feeling everything. It is not that you don't feel it. You're feeling the intense tugging and pulling and stretching, and literally your muscles of the uterus contracting and pulling up or pushing baby down. And in many cases, women describe it as like early labor as period cramps. So it's a similar, and even women experience period cramps in different ways. Some have very painful periods, some don't, just like birth. But in birth, in labor, we can actually facilitate that process happening physiologically by staying relaxed and open. And so pain in labor sends the message to your body that something is being strained. Mm-hmm. There's something in this process that is strained, or you're fighting it. You have tension in your body. So it's actually a message to relax. It's actually a message to open up and surrender. It doesn't mean this is how it is. You have to suffer through it, grin and bear it, brace yourself, get through it. And that's how most women interpret it, which actually causes more pain.
Well,
so
walk me through, how you even figured out that having a pain-free birth was possible. Did someone tell you about it, or did you just experience it yourself?
So when I got pregnant 10 years ago with my first baby, I was 27, and I believed that I just had I had the same fear that most other moms do. Like, I've been told it's painful. I don't know if I can do it. I was honestly scared, just like most other women. But there was something in me that said, it has to be better than what I've been told. And I believed my God created my body in his image, and he's a good father. So logically, I just thought, why would I have to experience pain in childbirth if he created my body and we're no longer under the fall, under the curse? Like, we're redeemed, we're new creations. So regardless, just no matter what you believe religiously or theologically, our bodies have been like perfected, either designed by an intelligent creator or through millions of years of evolution. Your body is designed to birth. And I thought, it's got to work better than what I've been told. So at first it was just a curiosity. And then I got my hands on some books and some materials like Supernatural Childbirth, or Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, some older books that really showed the beauty and the physiology of natural birth. And I started to shift my mindset, and shifting out of fear and into faith and confidence. And then I got excited. So throughout my pregnancy, I changed my mindset and started filling my heart with positive birth stories. And then, of course, you have like when birth actually hits. And I'm like, I have all these ideas and all this faith and all this, idea of what birth should be, but I don't really know. Like it could hit me like a truck and it's all a lie, right? So there was still this like thing in the back of my head that's like, we'll see. And labor comes. And at the very beginning, it was painful. And I was like, this is not what I learned. This is not what I'm believing in. Like, what's the deal here? I had this whole conversation with God and I heard very strongly in my spirit, embrace it. And I was like, that's crazy. I don't want to embrace it. It hurts. Like I physically, early labor here, I'm thinking if this is early labor, I don't know what active labor pushing is going to be. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll try anything. So the next contraction came. I'm just lying in bed, first birth, first time mom, don't know what I'm doing. And I embraced the contraction. It was like the energy swelled and I absorbed the energy into my body. And so women who describe a contraction, it's like it builds slowly. It's this tightening, this pulling, it peaks and then it kind of fades away. And as it was peaking, instead of getting tight and bracing for it, I relaxed and opened and I welcomed it in as if it was good, versus what I did before was bracing myself because I thought it was bad and it was going to hurt me, which caused more pain. So the moment I absorbed it and embraced it, it took a lot of mental energy and focus, but it didn't hurt in the sense that I wouldn't say it was painful. It was intense. It was strong. It pulled. I felt the sensation, but it didn't cause me pain or anguish like the contractions had previously. So I thought, okay, it worked that time. Let's see if it works the next time and the next and the next. And none of the other contractions in that labor were painful unless I let fear in and tension in my body, or I thought, I can't do this. And so I was able to catch myself, and it basically became muscle memory to that my body was able to contract and open and dilate, and I could feel everything. And I had to stay totally limp and relaxed, working with my body and embracing the contraction every time. And so I experienced a birth. And at the end, I experienced the birth high and the incredible euphoria that brought me. It was a water birth, a home birth. I had midwives there. We were laughing. We were crying. Like it was everything I dreamed it was.
Wow.
And after that experience, it like lit this fire in me because I thought to myself, man, women are being lied to. And I'm getting all emotional because it's really what I live for. It's my passion, because I thought women are being lied to all over the world. They're being told birth is painful, birth is traumatic, and it is for many women. I don't discount that and I don't invalidate that at all, but it doesn't have to be. And they're told your body's broken, you need assistance, we need to coach you and tell you how to push, we need to, we need to give you extra drugs or Pitocin or whatever, fill in the blank. We have to manage your labor because you're not enough. That's what women hear. In motherhood, in pregnancy, in postpartum, you're not enough. Your body's broken. And I started pain-free birth because I wanted to show women what was possible and that their bodies weren't broken, that they were divinely capable of birthing their baby, and that it didn't have to be traumatic or painful. It could be even ecstatic, especially when you research the hormones and everything that really is designed to happen. Your body's working for you and your baby's working with you. And when we partner with that, it's a transformational spiritual experience. And so I really just wanted to enlighten and bring this awareness of the possibility of what birth could be to women so that we could dismantle the fear in our culture surrounding birth and equip women with confidence and faith to really believe that they're capable of birth.
So incredible, everything that you've done. And I am like a huge fan, because that's kind of what I did with starting my daily show, Politics, is just kind of having this idea, something needs to change, and then just doing it. And that's kind of what you did with the whole pain-free birth movement, which I think is so admirable. And the biggest thing that was just confusing to me when I heard about it is because, and you kind of mentioned this, the fall and all of this, like from a theological standpoint, because I know even with non-Christians, I mean, we're all familiar with the story of Adam and Eve. In Genesis 3:16, God tells Eve, right, that like you're cursed forever, your childbearing is always going to be painful, essentially. And so that's why I want to ask you, I mean, how do you justify that women can experience a pain-free birth? Because I thought that it was like God's will that we were cursed with that because of what Eve had done.
Totally. I get that question all the time, especially from Christians, and understandably so, because if we think, oh, we're going to believe for this, but that's not what the Bible says, it's not in congruency. So when we look at those scriptures, especially in Genesis, where it talks about, God cursing Adam and Eve, he doesn't actually curse Eve's body. He doesn't curse Eve. He curses the ground, and he curses, but it doesn't even say in that verse, cursed is Eve, cursed is birth. It says you will experience pain in childbearing. And when we look closely at that word, the original word is atsab, which is like toil or sorrow or hard work. And it can be translated pain, but it's the only instance in the whole Bible that it's translated pain when it's referring to Eve in childbirth. When you look at it in every other context, it's translated sorrow, grief, toil, in the same way that it's used when God says, I'm cursing the ground, you'll have to work and toil the ground. So he says to Adam, you're going to work and toil. So really what we're seeing there is the environment, the whole context of their world changed. Sin came in, entered the garden, and now they have to work hard. They have to work and labor in childbearing, work and labor to toil the ground. And we see that in our world today. We still live in a fallen world. We live in a world where there's sin and evil and horrible things happen. But then we also see Jesus came to redeem, to break off every curse. He says, I've borne your pain and your sorrows and your sickness. I took stripes for your healing. So logically, why would God take away our pain or provide at least a way to remove pain in every other situation in our life, but not in childbirth? Like, okay, I'll heal your body. I'll heal your sickness. I'll heal your grief. I'll redeem you from every curse, except not childbirth. Women, you still have to suffer there. Like, it doesn't make sense. So
you're saying there's not a caveat there.
Yes. But even if you're not a Christian or believer, you can still look at those original verses and say, okay, God never actually cursed Eve's body. So that means I can step into the fulfillment, into the original creation, like her original body, our original bodies are still good. We're created in God's image. He didn't put like a curse on us that says you have to have pain in birth, even though that's the way we translate it. And there's bias there because they translate it, okay, for the woman, it's pain, for the man, it's hard work, right?
Right.
But even if we said, okay, let's even the playing field. Maybe it's hard work for both. Yeah, birth is hard work. Birth is sometimes grief, takes sorrow, takes toil, takes so much energy out of you. And most women I know are not afraid of that kind of hard work. In fact, they want this. When we think it doesn't, when we realize it doesn't have to be painful and suffering, we embrace this transformation. And I think that's what we have to remember, is that the woman's body is not cursed, and we have to break off that mentality. And we're even taught that in culture, like our bodies are cursed because we're women. We have to suffer with a period. We have to bleed. We're weaker, right? And we get these ideas in our head that make us believe that it's something to suffer. Like being a woman means you have to suffer. And I just don't buy it. I know it's true, and in so many cultures it's true, but that's what I'm working to dismantle, is that you're not the weaker person, you're not broken, you're not, your body is not a failure when you're actually incredibly strong. Like when you look at how strong women are and what they're capable of and the amount of pressure and energy happening in our bodies in labor, it's incredibly empowering when we remove fear from the conversation, from the mentality. So yeah.
What is it that hospitals are telling women to do specifically during labor that causes unnecessary pain?
That's a great question. And hospitals, generally speaking, don't support physiological birth. They manage birth. And in many cases, there's many women that have to be in a hospital, and I don't judge or discriminate from anyone who says, I want to birth at home, I want to birth in the hospital, I want to birth in a birth center, I want to birth in the woods by a stream with birds chirping. I don't care where you want to birth. I think you should birth where you feel most safe, because your body is going to work best there. But it's true, if we simply look at hospitals, it is not conducive to physiological birth. And what I mean by physiological birth is the way your body is designed to naturally labor. So if you think about an animal in the wild, any animal or mammal in the wild in labor needs certain things for that birth to go smoothly. So they need a quiet space. They need usually dark lighting. And what you'll often see is that mammals, when labor begins, they instinctually retreat and they find a quiet, dark place that's not disturbed. And then they go into labor there. And if you do disturb a mammal in labor, it often disrupts their labor pattern or it stalls entirely because they know I'm not safe. And farmers know this, humans, we know this, don't disturb animals in labor, don't intervene. And yet we don't realize that humans are mammals too. We have the same basic physiological needs. And so when we're put into an environment where there's high stress, monitoring, management, bright lights, loud noises, constant interruptions and disturbances, everything about that environment puts our defenses on alert. Our brain tells our body, oh, it's not safe here. It's the fight or flight. And that fight or flight sympathetic nervous system response is actually what creates the tension in the body. So the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol cause tension, and that tension is what causes pain. And so what we'll see often in hospitals is that labor is more painful, or it takes longer, or it stalls entirely, because women are having to contend with these disturbances and an environment that doesn't support their innate physiology.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is too, just talking about, stereotypes when it comes to giving birth. We live in a time, when medicine is the best it's ever been, but I think that it can almost be used as an excuse against women who want to experience a natural birth. And correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, but I also think that we run the risk of glorifying hospitals to the point where we put a hospital's way of doing things kind of over a mother's intuition. So I want you to address some of the misconceptions or myths about all natural or home births.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because there's a lot of contention between these camps. Like, oh, well, if you birth at home, you're putting your baby in danger, or you're selfish, or if you go to the hospital, well, you don't trust your body and you're a failure or something. And
right, they say that there's a greater risk of death if you have a home birth versus a hospital birth.
Yeah, and there's lots of different studies on that. Some of the largest studies, like if you look at the one in the Lancet published in Australia, they looked at, it was over I think it was 750,000 births. And they found that there's no increased risk to mom or baby delivering for a low risk mom delivering at home. Now, if you have things that make you high risk, the hospital may be a better choice for you. Absolutely. And again, I'm not here to judge. We have to look at risk versus risk. I think that's the misunderstanding that we're raised with, is that we think hospital equals safe, home or alternative equals dangerous or risky. When in reality, in a home birth, a midwife comes with myriad of supplies, Pitocin to stop bleeding, fetal resuscitation kit to help the baby breathe if they need help or assistance breathing, all, iodine to do stitching, all kinds of stuff. You just don't have the operating room for cesarean or epidural pain medicine. And so if you need that, you can transfer. And so actually, that's how we see birth handled in many ways in other countries, like in Europe, like in England. They have a lot of home births, and midwifery care is the standard.
Why do you think that in England it's a standard to have birth at home, but not in America? Is it just like a money-making thing?
I wouldn't say it's a standard to have birth at home. It's still the minority. You see about 2%, 1% to 2% of births in America mothers delivering at home. I'm not sure exactly what the stats are in England. And we both have issues with our maternity care systems not supporting physiology. So I don't mean to paint Europe as like this glorious, they have problems there too. We have it everywhere. It's really the need to manage women. I think that's what it comes down to. When you have doctors going to medical school and getting trained, and I am so grateful that we have doctors who are there in case of emergencies. And we do need them. We need cesareans. They make birth safer. But about 5% or so of women truly need a medical emergency or cesarean. And that's kind of what you see, like the World Health Organization says, your cesarean rate really shouldn't be above 10%.
And what are we at?
Healthy birth outcomes. And now, if you're in like an impoverished country like African countries or third world countries, having safe obstetric care makes birth safer, right? Because there are complications and things that happen. Again, we live in a fallen world. Birth is not perfect. Birth is not predictable. And so we want that option for women who need it, or for any woman, even delivered at home, to be able to utilize safe obstetric care or transfer in the sense of an emergency. And in England, they basically just work better together. So you have home birth midwives working with physicians, working with OBs, working with high risk, fetal maternal specialists, and there's more of a cohesiveness and a smooth transfer. Whereas in the US, it's like you're either home birth or you're hospital, and you better make your choice and you better stick to it. And if you transfer, well, you failed. Your home birth failed. No, a transfer from home to hospital is not a failure. It's an appropriate use of resources. And I think that's where we have to understand the role that we want. If I'm a low risk mom and I want a physiological birth in a safe place in my home or birth center or somewhere, hiring a midwife who's experienced and an expert in physiologic birth is a good option, and using obstetrics if you need it in the sense of an emergency, or if a high risk situation comes up when you need that expert or maternal fetal medicine specialist. Again, we have all these professions, is a good idea, but you don't need a high risk expert specialist like an obstetrician that's a trained surgeon to manage a low risk pregnancy. And what we see in those situations is often higher rates of interventions. We have a 33% cesarean rate in our country, which is much higher than it needs to be.
Why is it? Why is it higher than it needs to be? Like, are women getting C-sections that don't need them?
Yes. And if you look up, there's doctors like Neil Shah who speak a lot about that about half of them are unnecessary. And it's because, as I talked about, the hospital system is not designed to support physiological birth. So you take a low risk mom who had no complications, no problems in her pregnancy, and you see this time and time again. They go into the hospital and we see the cascade of interventions where her physiological process is being disrupted internally. There's interventions, there's interruptions, your labor's taking a long time, we'll have to give you Pitocin to speed it up. And now those contractions are really strong and really hard and really painful, so we need an epidural for the pain. And now that epidural is causing labor to slow down, and baby's heart rate is concerning, and that's getting too slow. We're seeing decelerations, so we better give you more Pitocin. We got to get that baby out sooner, so more Pitocin. Now we're seeing more decelerations. And it's this game of like cat and mouse. How do we prescribe these drugs so that baby can tolerate them? So you're having a birth where you're trying to make baby tolerate it. And one way or the other, either you have a vaginal delivery that's medicated and lots of interventions, and women often feel disempowered. Not everyone. Again, if you want the epidural, get it. I'm not here to judge. Or you have a cesarean because either fetal distress or failure to progress, meaning your labor stalled.
Is
Both
a baby
of those
being in breach? I've never given birth. Just throwing that out there. Is a baby being in breach a reason for a C-section?
It often is talked about in that way.
But when I see your page, you always are like showing these women that have babies in breach that are giving birth at home. So for women that have had a baby in breach but have given birth in a hospital, explain how do you give birth then without a C-section at home if your baby's in breach?
So breech babies is not a reason. It doesn't mean an automatic cesarean like we're taught. And even the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology says breech vaginal delivery is a reasonable, safe option for low-risk women to consider. The problem is doctors are not giving women informed consent when they have a breech baby. And they're saying, okay, if you don't deliver, your baby's going to have head entrapment or all these complications. And they put a lot of fear into women. And that fear tells their body, clamp down, get tight. So if we look at the study, it goes back to the breech term trial, and that's when it showed the perspective in America swayed from breech is a reasonable, safe option to have a vaginal delivery to now we have to have every breech delivered by cesarean because it's dangerous and risky. But when you look at more updated, larger trials on breech deliveries, when you have a skilled practitioner who's experienced in breech or breech extraction and they know what to look for in a hands-off physiological breech delivery, the risks are very low. There are some higher risks of certain things happening, but there are also risks to cesarean. And that's, I think, what we don't talk about, that there's a lot of risks to having repeat cesareans, especially. So if you have a breech baby and you want more kids, you should definitely have that conversation with your doctor and understand the actual risks of delivering breech versus having a cesarean, which may mean you need a repeat cesarean, or now you need to do have a VBAC, all of this, you're looking at risk versus risk. It's not one is risky, one is dangerous. Are there risks to breech delivery? Absolutely. And there are risks to vaginal birth, and there are risks to cesarean delivery, and there are risks to repeat cesareans. And those risks of repeat cesareans increase with each subsequent cesarean. And they can actually be greater than a breech delivery after you've had 2 or 3 cesareans. So we have to look at all the information and not just make a snap judgment and say, breech is dangerous. Now, is it 100% safe? No.
Right.
Life is 100% safe. And
That's
some
true.
breech positions are more dangerous than others, right?
So
but
one thing
generally speaking,
right.
it's normal.
One thing that you talk about too is that even sometimes the positions that women are told to give birth in a hospital can increase pain during labor. Could you expand on that?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're seeing, and I'll just mention too, like breech is a variation of normal, just like a lot of things in labor, like having a long labor is a variation of normal, having a short labor, delivering babies that are big is a variation of normal. It doesn't mean you have to get a cesarean. And that's so often what women are told. And it reinforces this belief that your body doesn't know what to do. If there's even the slightest variation of normal of what we like to see in our little box, we're going to recommend induction or cesarean. And then we, of course, see these higher intervention rates. And in the hospital, it doesn't help. Like you said, that women are told to lay on their back and push, which is probably the worst position physiologically to deliver in.
Why is that?
Well, you're sitting on baby's head, right? So your tailbone is restricted, and your tailbone is designed to expand in labor. The woman's pelvis is round and flexible, and all those joints move. They're designed to open and flex. And we see lots of movement in the maternal pelvis. In fact, it can expand up to 30% in labor, especially in certain positions that are upright, or like a lunge position expands the pelvis up to 30%. Lying on your back, though, restricts your tailbone from expanding. So your baby's head's coming down, hitting the tailbone or the bottom of the bed.
Ow.
And then you have to push up to get that baby's head out. So you're fighting against gravity because the pelvis, the birth canal is not like a straight shot. Baby has to rotate and really maneuver to get out. And so sitting on your back restricts motion. It will cause more pain, and you have to use a lot more energy to push in order to get baby around that pubic bone and then pushing literally uphill to get that baby out.
But if a doctor knows that, why do they have women lie on their back then to give birth?
Because it's convenient for them. That's how they were taught. That's how they've seen birth done. That's how they've always done it. In fact, it goes back to like a king, I think it was King Louis XIV, I could be wrong about that, who said back in the day, I want to see women, my mistresses give birth. He was curious about this. And people kind of say, this is a little creepy, but he made, at the time, royalty and everyone birthed in upright positions, which is physiological and instinctual. And then he told his mistress to give birth on her back so he could see the birth. And so then it kind of spread that, oh, well, if royalty births this way, we should do it too.
Oh,
so some people say that's how it started. I don't know if that's true, but it's more convenient for the doctor nowadays because they can see everything. And it's kind of like that saying, like, this is how we've always done it. This is how we're going to do it. And to see a woman in hands and knees or an upright position where they have to maybe get down low on their hands and knees to see, or, see it in a different angle, even though it may not be any more inconvenient. Like I tell women, if your doctor says, hey, get in bed, it's time to push. First of all, you don't have to get birth in whatever position you want. You don't have to do anything if it doesn't feel right to you. But if you want to, you can get in bed on your hands and knees. And the doctor can deliver, your midwife or whoever can deliver that baby and have full view, full access. And it's no more restrictive than laying on your back.
Wow.
Some women may want to lay on their back. If they've had a long, exhausting labor, it might feel good. If that's the case, I recommend turning on your side so that your tailbone still has that freedom of mobility and it's not restricting baby's movement. And then you can kind of hold the leg up. But I do recommend like knees in, feet out, because that's going to open the pelvic outlet. Instead of cranking in a hospital, what they're going to tell you to do is to hold your knees all the way up to your ears. Hold on really tight so you're like spread eagle, and hold your breath, count to 10 and push, 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 push. everything about that is wrong. It causes so much tension, increases the likelihood of tearing, and it actually closes the pelvic outlet when your knees are spread really far and really wide. But if your knees are in, it opens the outlet. Your pelvis is kind of on a hinge like this.
You're blowing minds. You're blowing minds, Karen. When I was growing up, we rarely went out to eat because my mom has always loved to cook. Every morning, she woke up before we went to school to make us a homemade breakfast, and every day when we got home, there was usually some form of cake or cookies waiting for us. And we ate dinner as a family at the table every night. If your mom loves to cook too, and you completely forgot to get her a Mother's Day present, don't worry, I will not rat you out. I'm going to help you. You cannot go wrong with a box of meat from Moink. That's Moo plus Oink. Moink farmers farm like our grandparents did. And as a result, Moink meat tastes like it should because the family farm does it better. You choose the meat delivered in every box, and there's everything from ribeyes and chicken breast to bacon, lamb, and salmon. I love meat from Moink, and I know you will too. Keep America farming by signing up at moinkbox.com/spillover right now and surprise your mom for Mother's Day, and maybe she'll let you have a taste. A huge bonus is that conservatives who sign up at moinkbox.com/spillover right now will get free filet mignon for a year. That's 1 year of the best melt-in-your-mouth steak you've ever had, but only for a limited time. That's moinkbox.com/spillover. That's moinkbox.com/spillover. So if a woman is pregnant with twins or multiples, is she somebody that definitely should not have a home birth, or is that also just totally wrong?
I think you need a skilled practitioner. That's kind of what I advocate for. In some cases, it may be that if a woman really feels safer at home, her body is going to have a safer birth. Again, it's that fight or flight. Now, I share lots of stories of women having twins at home, and some women might get freaked out by that. And I think I probably even would have been freaked out by that a year or two ago. But the more and more I learn and I understand what's really happening, there are amazing. Shout out to Dr. Stuart Fishbein, does home births for twins and breech babies in Southern California, and he's normalizing breech and twin deliveries. Now, in most cases, it's not legal, or I should say it's not legal for a midwife to do a twin or breech home birth at home. So you may not even have that option unless you choose to birth unassisted. I recommend getting a skilled practitioner who's experienced with twins, who's experienced with breech deliveries or breech extraction, who knows what they're doing, who you also feel safe and comfortable with and you trust. Because really your provider is going to determine your birth outcome more than any other factor in your birth. Whether you're at home or in a hospital, your relationship with that provider and how much you trust them and how they treat you and how they care for you, and whether they bring in fear and anxiety into your birth space or whether they bring in trust and care and love, is going to really be the biggest factor in determining what kind of birth you have.
So for a woman who does go into labor with this goal of having a pain-free birth, but she doesn't achieve it, what most likely would have prevented that pain-free experience?
So I think we have to first get out of the mentality that we're blaming ourselves. First of all, having pain does not mean you failed. Having a painful labor or a hard labor or a long labor doesn't mean you did something wrong. Now, can we prevent or minimize pain? Absolutely. And sometimes we can't. So we have to look at all the factors of what causes pain. Certainly mindset is a big factor. And when we look at how are we responding to labor, how is our body physiologically responding to every contraction? What's going through your head? Are you saying, I can't do this? Ow, this hurts. Make it stop. How long is this going to take? Negative thought patterns? Or are you embracing it, going, ooh, relaxing your jaw, relaxing your face, welcoming the energy in? That's going to determine how every contraction feels. We've also got the baby position. And the baby position in a big way affects how you experience those contractions. So a posterior baby, or baby that's kind of flipped, facing the front, where their head is facing the back of the head is facing the mother's spine, can cause a lot of back labor. If you've got an asynclitic baby, if you've got a tight pelvic floor, there's lots of, without going like crazy, there's lots of other factors. It's not only mindset. And we have to remember that. We have to remember environment plays a big role. Who's supporting you on your support team plays a big role in how you experience labor. But it all comes back to, in many ways, the fear, tension, pain cycle. And if we can be deeply aware of our body, which is hard for a lot of women, I think, because we're taught to disassociate from our body. But if we become deeply aware of our body and connected to ourselves, we can become aware when pain enters, and we can say, let's get curious about this. Where is there tension in my body? Where is fear coming in to my mind? What am I thinking about that's causing fear and anxiety? Because that fear leads to tension in the body. Tension causes pain when contractions come. And then that pain leads to more fear, because now we're scared because it's painful, right? And then more fear leads to more tension, leads to more pain. And it's this downward spiral. So what I teach women in my e-course is, how do we reverse that downward cycle? How do we arrest it and reframe our mind to, okay, this is painful. Let's get curious. Instead of beating yourself up, or blaming yourself for something that went wrong. And many times we can't control birth. If your labor is 30 hours or 3 hours, there's a lot of things about birth we can't control, but we can control how we respond to contractions, how we respond to the sensations of birth, and the mindset we have going in, which is going to allow your body to open or close. And we kind of have that opportunity with every contraction. Am I going to open and embrace and surrender? Or am I going to close and get tense and control? And I think like many of us want to control. And so breaking that habit is a big part of learning how to facilitate a pain-free birth or birth with less pain.
What are all the benefits of having a home birth that women, experience? So you're giving birth at home, and then these are all the amazing things that women love about giving birth at home.
So yeah, I did have a home birth with my first. I switched at near the end of my pregnancy. Actually, I was going to do a hospital birth, and then I said, I just don't feel like that's.
Wait, you can do this? I thought that if you had a hospital picked and stuff, that you were stuck. Because I had one of my best friends. She wanted to switch and do a home birth, and then she was like, "Well, I already picked my hospital and have it all set up and everything. I can't get out of it."
No. That is such a mental block. And I tell women all the time, you can switch anytime. You can do 40 weeks and switch. If you find a midwife willing to take you, even if you don't, there's always options. You can fire your doctor in labor if he is not serving your well-being, if he's abusive or controlling or any situation. You have the rights of body autonomy and informed consent. And at any time, you can fire your doctor or nurse and say, you know what, this is not serving me. I don't feel safe in your care. I don't feel comfortable. I would like to request a new doctor. And they have hospitalists on call in any hospital that will come. You might not get to choose your ideal provider, but if you're feeling unsafe, that's really going to disrupt your labor pattern. If there's tension in that room with the doctor, or you feel like there's obstetric violence taking place, or you feel controlled or abused in any way, get out of there or kick out that doctor. Or you can go to the nurse manager and say, I want to request a new nurse. This nurse is not a good fit for us. And they would rather assign you a new nurse or a new doctor than have to deal with complaints later on. So it's in everybody's best interest to find the right fit. And if you're in pregnancy and you're seeing warning signs, you're feeling red flags with your doctor's office, and they're saying things like, oh yeah, I support natural birth, but we'll probably want to induce you at 39 weeks, or, for no real medical reason. There's a lot of, we can get into that. I always tell women, if you don't feel comfortable, 100% comfortable, 100% supported in your desired birth, you need to switch, because there is always going to be a better provider out there. There's going to be a provider for you, and you deserve it. Your baby deserves it. Don't ever birth with someone you don't feel comfortable or safe with. It's like sex. If you're having sex and you don't feel safe, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Birth is the same. It's the same hormonal blueprint where oxytocin is designed to peak and go high, and that blocks pain receptors and opens and dilates you. And if you don't feel safe, your body will stop producing oxytocin and you won't dilate.
Wow.
Your labor will stall, just like a deer in the wild that senses a predator coming close. Their body goes into fight or flight, labor shuts down, all the muscle, you stop getting blood flowing to your uterus and those organs, and instead it goes to your large muscle groups so you can fight or flight or freeze and run to safety. Same is true in a hospital or with a provider. Could be in a home birth too. If you have a provider that you don't feel comfortable with, your brain goes into fight or flight. It stops digestion and labor and those processes that aren't essential stop in order to flood your large muscle groups with blood and oxygen so that you can run away. And until you're in a safe environment, oftentimes that labor won't really pick back up again. And I think that's really truly when we see this in high diagnoses of failure to progress, which is the number one reason for cesareans in this country. A lot of that is simply the fight or flight mechanism. So if that was you and you had failure to progress that ended in a cesarean, don't beat yourself up, because more often than not, your body didn't fail you. It was actually doing exactly what it was designed to do and what it was created to do, which is to protect mom and baby in the presence of a threat. And it might not, the doctor might not be a threat, but your brain interprets it the same way as a predator in the wild. If you don't feel safe and comfortable around someone's presence, it doesn't matter how qualified they are or how important they are. If they make you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, your brain interprets it as a threat.
So what are the things that women experience when they're giving birth at home, though, that they just think, oh, this was so much better than when I gave birth in a hospital? Like what sorts of positives are there to having home birth?
So at a home birth, you're in your natural environment and you're comfortable and you don't have interruptions. You can set whatever kind of environment you want, low lights, you can, and you control the environment.
You can eat?
Outside, yeah.
Really?
You control it.
Why are we told that we're not allowed to eat? Why are we told we're not allowed to eat during labor, though, in a hospital?
Would you starve yourself if you had to run a marathon?
Heck no.
No, you'd be eating carbs and spaghetti. You'd be fueling, like, food is energy. Women need fuel in labor. Now, in active labor, most women aren't hungry. But if you have a long labor, you better be eating and nourishing your body. You better be drinking electrolytes. You better be doing something to help. And you don't know if your labor is going to be 30 hours or 3 hours. So I tell women, eat and sleep. If you feel like it, do it. The studies that led to the decisions to restrict food and drink to women in labor are so outdated. They're based on anesthesia practices from the 40s.
What?
The actual true risk of a woman aspirating in surgery, which means you have to be put under. So not general, like not epidural anesthesia, but full anesthesia, you're out. And aspirating and dying is like 0.0004%. It's so, like, they actually changed those recommendations. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology years ago said, okay, we're revising this. We're no longer going to restrict eating and drinking for low-risk moms in labor. We all said, yay. And hospitals said, okay, we'll change our policies in like 10 or 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
So it takes on average 20 years to change a hospital policy once new evidence comes out. And that's why I recommend women, you have to get educated. You have to get informed. You have to learn how to advocate for yourself, because your doctor and your hospital are not necessarily guaranteed to be practicing based on evidence-based, up-to-date research.
But that's what the doula does, right? If you bring a doula to a hospital birth, like they're kind of, I call them the baby bouncer. Like you guys tell the doctor, like, hey, she's going to have a chicken leg if she wants or whatever.
So a doula supports the woman in physiological birth, but they don't boss around the doctors.
Oh.
That's for sure.
See, I haven't done any of this. You're teaching me. Now, much of my audience are moms, so they'll know. They'll be like, Alex.
I mean, a doula can advocate, but when I serve women in hospitals and I have doula clients at home and in hospitals, I'm there to support mom and remind her, these are your rights. These are your choices. Do you want time to discuss this? I help her find her own voice. I'm not there to take over and start bossing people around. That's not my job. My job is to support mom and her partner to have an empowered birth experience and remind them you have choices, you have options. Is this what you want? Making sure they understand what they're consenting to or not, and protecting her environment. Because like I said, hospital birth, the environment just does not, is not conductive to natural physiological birth. And so making sure I go in, first thing I do, turn off the lights. You don't have to have the fluorescent lights on. You can turn them off. You can bring little electronic candles. You can bring twinkly lights. You can play music. You can bring aromatherapy. You can make it like a home if you want. And whisper, make sure you're whispering when, visitors are coming in so that it's nice. And, the nurses come in, they're like, oh, it's really nice in here. I just want to stay in here. Like, that's when now this is an environment that's more conducive, not ideal, but more conducive. In a home birth, you have the familiarity of your home. You have freedom of movement. I love going up and down the stairs in birth, which isn't typically an option in a hospital for liability reasons. But my second birth was she was asynclitic, which means her head is like angled toward my hip. Not at all a good position. And in most hospitals, it would end in a cesarean. But at home, I was able to chug up and down the stairs and bring a lot of movement into my hips. And I basically shimmied her down and out.
Whoa.
But it was hard work. So you also have the benefit of your natural endorphins, which are natural pain blocking endorphins like opioids. They block pain receptors. And you have more of a free flow of those in a nurturing, safe, familiar environment like the home, where you're able to fully let go and like sink in deep into labor land. And those hormones of oxytocin and endorphins really are so powerful. I think they're more powerful. In fact, studies have shown they're more powerful than drugs you might get in a hospital, or even like if you took cocaine, the high you get from cocaine, the high you get in birth is greater. It releases more pain blocking and oxytocin hormones in your brain than you would get if you took crack. And
okay,
so
that's
that
crazy.
Is real.
Yeah, a bunch of cokeheads are going to be like, I got to get pregnant.
I mean, this is why women say, like, I am addicted to birth. I want to have another baby. And that's possible. Like, you don't have to get done with your birth and be like, I am never having another. And you might like say, oh God, I'm so thankful that's over. Like, there's a relief that, oh, that hard work, that labor, that toil, I did it, it's over. But that birth high gets you so addicted. And it's not just mom that gets it. Everybody in the room that witnesses a physiological birth, an unmedicated birth, gets their own release of oxytocin to a lesser degree. And that's why we call it, like, you know, you're addicted, you're an addict, you have the birth high.
Well, I've never heard that before. Let me tell you, this is the first time I'm ever hearing that there are women that are addicted to giving birth. That's really mind-blowing to me. What is the craziest thing that a woman, or just funniest or weirdest thing that like a woman wanted to do at a home birth you were working?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I had one client that I'm thinking of. She was having a long labor, and one thing she did that really I thought was brilliant. It was a home birth, and her husband had one of those exercise bars, like in the door, you know, like in the frame of the door where you do pull-ups. And she was having a hard time. Like, that baby it was really strong contractions. She was in a great mindset. It was just taking a long time, and it was really hard. So at one point, I took a scarf, or rebozo, which is a traditional cloth that they use for women in labor in traditional cultures. And there's a lot of things you can do with this cloth to help facilitate that baby turning and rotating, coming down. So what we did was I wrapped it around this bar. She grabbed it like this, and she hung down and like squatted. And I'm telling you, that baby came out 5 minutes later. It was amazing.
Whoa.
There's something in this physiological response of pulling down and hanging that like your body just like pushes that baby down.
Right.
And they try to facilitate this in hospitals with the birth bar, but it's not the same. You really got to be like
bouncing
pulling down and squatting. And they do that in indigenous cultures. If you look back and see like, how do women birth in, you know, historically throughout cultures, a lot of women will like get a tree branch and like a rope and hang from it, or squat, or like hold on to their partner and squat. And you see this type of physiological, like natural instinctual positioning when women are told what to do. We're told, get in this position, or get in that position, or make this noise, or push like this, or hold your breath.
Right.
We do things intuitively. And for her, it really effectively brought that baby down real fast. And she was grunting, and she was, like, it was just so beautiful to witness, like, this power.
Right.
And to see how effective it was too. I was like, wow, I got to remember that one.
How can men be a healthy part of the birthing process?
Great question. I have a whole class for men in my e-course where I teach men how to support their partner in physiological birth. Number one, support her intuition, support her instincts. If she says, I really feel like home birth or birth center is the right choice, trust her, because she knows what's best for her and her baby. Intuitively, she knows where is the safest place for her to birth. And if you're uncomfortable with that, like my husband was in the beginning, do your research, watch documentaries like The Business of Being Born, read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, understand how her body was created and designed for birth, and support her in her divine ability to do what she was created to do. And just feed her confidence constantly. Don't ever take withdrawals and make her doubt or question her ability to birth. I think that's probably number one. It's just supporting her in whatever she feels best. And then in labor, hands-on, learn how to do a hip squeeze, rub, massage. Here's what I say. The same hormones that get the baby in, get the baby out. So if you know your woman, like as a man, you can do things that make her feel calm and relaxed and in the mood. Those same hormones of oxytocin are going to help labor progress smoothly, effectively, and safely. If you're present, you're with her in the moment, you're physically touching her, if she likes that, if that helps her. Some women don't like it, but being physically present and also showing up with masculine energy, which is strong, stable, secure.
Heck yeah.
It's like the bowl that holds the water. Like women are the water. We splash, we moan, we groan, we move, we cry, we laugh. We're all over the place in labor, and that's okay. You're not supposed to be we're not robots. Like it's gonna be intense. You might want to cry. You might have to let out an emotional, like spill everything out. Let out all your fears. Let out all the crazy. Let out everything out. The man shows up and says, "I'm here for you. You're safe. We're gonna do this together. I'm supporting you." That strong, unwavering, present in the moment. That's the kind of energy that's going to support her in labor the best.
On your Instagram, Pain Free Birth, you talk a lot about having an ecstatic birth with God. What does that mean?
So that refers to the hormones that come into play in a physiological, unmedicated birth that most women have never heard of or learned about. And we just think birth is painful. That's the way it is. But then when you learn about what your body is designed to do and how your body is designed to release oxytocin and endorphins at peak levels, not just like the birth high after the baby's born, but even in labor, birth can be joyful and ecstatic. In fact, in my first birth, I was like 8 centimeters. And in my brain, I kept thinking, it's going to get worse. Like, I mean, it's working now. I'm not in pain. This is working. I was like, it's going good, but it's going to get worse. I kept thinking it's going to get worse. When I finally realized, there's this moment in my birth when I realized it's working, and it's not painful. Everything I prayed for is happening. And I was in the middle of active labor, going into transition most likely. And I start laughing because those endorphins and that oxytocin, I got like a surge of them. I could feel it. I was like, I'm having fun. And I literally said that out loud. I thought I wouldn't believe it later. But I was laughing at 8 centimeters. And I have other women tell me all the time, I was laughing and making jokes. And the nurses were like dumbfounded because she's 9 centimeters or she's pushing and they're laughing and in joy. And not everyone's laughing, but you have these peak moments of is what could be considered like a high, but it's from all the natural hormones and chemicals your body is releasing in a natural birth that are designed to not only block pain, but create euphoria and ecstasy and bond moms and babies together so that it's a joyful experience when you're bringing your baby into this world. It shouldn't have to be traumatic and scary. It can be joyful and ecstatic.
On your materials, you also talk about being connected to a source. What source are you talking about?
So for me, that source is God. For someone else, it may be something else. It may be that innate power within them. I connect to God and the Holy Spirit in my births. I'm in constant communication with them. That source of energy, that life, all humans are connected to a life source. We're not just out there as robots. We're energetic beings. We're spiritual beings. And birth is a deeply spiritual experience. And I think when we view it as that, we can begin to meet our spiritual needs. We can begin to become aware of what's really going on. If I'm scared, what do I need to hear? What kind of support do I need? What is it I'm fighting, trying to control something? Like, how do I surrender? How do I tap into like a strength that's deeper than my own? And when we encounter birth as something we're physically capable of doing, it becomes a very spiritual, transformational experience. And when we have a source or God or whoever, whatever you consider that higher power to be, when we can acknowledge that and connect to it, it makes birth an incredibly spiritual, fulfilling, transformational experience that really like launches women into motherhood. It's like a rite of passage, I believe, for women, that birth is designed to be this empowering rite of passage. And we should never take that away from a woman. And often we see it sabotaged, but the potential for transformation is so ripe in birth. And I want every woman to have the opportunity to experience that for herself.
You've said that during labor, you experienced flashes of guidance and visuals of what to do next. Whether that was changing your position in labor or activities that you think you should be doing in the process of labor. What did those flashes look like, and where do you think they came from quickly?
So it was just in my imagination. I would see a picture of me going up and down the stairs, or I would ask this question like, okay, what's next? And I'd feel this big surge and I'd know, God, it's time to get in the tub. And I was just connected to God, and I would see those pictures in my head. And I felt like he was showing me things, either God, Holy Spirit, or my own intuition, because we're one with him, right? He lives inside of us. So it's hard to separate it out. But I believe it was spiritual guidance where I would see or have a knowledge of something I had to do.
If a woman wants to take your e-course, what steps does she go to? Where can she find you? Where can she learn more about having a pain-free birth with you?
So painfreebirth.com is my website, and I've got the e-course on there and a postpartum bliss e-course where I talk about experiencing bliss in the postpartum. Just like in labor, we have those same hormones that facilitate bonding and breastfeeding even in the postpartum season. And I share about how to avoid postpartum depression and how to really experience birth and postpartum the way that God designed your body to function, to operate. And so you can go to painfreebirth.com, or you can find me on Instagram at painfreebirth. And I have lots of resources there. I have a free download. You can download a partner's cheat sheet, which you can hand to your partner and say, here, say these things in labor to me, or remind me of this at this stage. It has a whole like breakdown of first stage, second stage, and pushing. And I get into a whole module on how to push physiologically. Like I said, most women are taught hold your breath and force push it out for hours on end. I teach women physiological pushing, where you're using breath to push baby down, which is a powerful tool, like the Ruach breath of God. It's something he gave us to use. Our uterus is designed to push that baby out. So I teach women, most women who take my course push for 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, but they do it naturally, usually without tearing or minimal tearing. So I teach you basically how your body was designed to birth, and how you can partner with God and how you can partner with your body to have an empowering, positive birth experience. It may be pain-free. You may experience some pain. I obviously can't guarantee or promise pain-free birth to anyone, but I teach you the basic building blocks of what physiological birth is and how your body is designed to birth, which is the basis of pain-free birth. So the women who take my course say, even if their birth wasn't pain-free, they say, I felt so confident, I felt so empowered, and they walk away from birth feeling not like the power was taken from them, but like they owned that experience, which is really what I want women to experience, or have at least the opportunity to. Even if you have interventions and you need medical intervention, there's nothing wrong with that. You can still keep your power. You can still advocate for yourself. You can still stay confident and firm in what you believe or what you need in birth, and have an empowering birth experience, even if it didn't go perfectly. So it's not about like, hey, I did it unmedicated, I get a trophy. No, it's about, were you in charge? Were you empowered? Were you supported? That's what I want to know. So they can find me painfreebirth.com or painfreebirth on Instagram, and I've got freebies in the link in my bio, and you can find me that way.
Well, I gotta say, Karen, for someone that's never had kids yet, I find your Instagram to be one of my favorite accounts. It is fascinating. I love the videos of women giving birth at home, their birth stories, your tips, your reels are incredible. Like, I mean, absolutely one of my favorite accounts, even as someone who doesn't have kids yet. So I know that conservatives, my audience, the people that listen to the show, are going to love you, whether they have had kids or not. So thank you so much for coming on the Spillover.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
I'm not a momservative yet, so I have no idea if what Karen Welton believes sounds like nonsense or a game changer for you moms. I think this episode will be so interesting to set up a discussion with girlfriends and female family members in your life. Do you think that pain-free birth is some kind of mystical new age voodoo mama juju, or could embracing the birthing techniques that Karen teaches transcend the art of giving birth in a way that impacts generations to come? I'm not personally sure, but I know one thing. She's a guest on The Spillover that makes you think and challenges you, and those are some of my favorite interviews to do. If you like this episode too, please make sure you leave a 5-star review and subscribe to The Spillover. Share your thoughts on the episode. Tell all your mom friends to listen to this. Ask what they think. If you disagree, that's okay. Still leave 5 stars, and then, you can roast her and I don't know. I'm sure she can handle it. New episodes of The Spillover come out every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or you can watch the episode live on the Politics YouTube channel and participate in the chat. It's always super fun. I'm Alex Clark, and this is The Spillover. Love you, mean it. Bye. Juicy show today. You may have noticed multiple activist organizations are trying to scare companies who advertise on Twitter, telling them they need to boycott Twitter once Elon Musk is in charge because it will be damaging to their brands to be associated with him and his evil free speech. Now we know who's been funding the hate campaigns against Elon, and it is so juicy and exactly who you'd expect. Was Kim Kardashian's sex tape being released completely strategic and consenting by Kim? If you're a Devil Wears Prada fan, I have some tea about Anna Wintour's reaction to that movie when it first came out. And the Freak of the Week are multiple companies you love and use who are planning to fund abortions for their employees in states that won't allow them post-Roe. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics. Big news that just came out is that Elon Musk is expected to serve as temporary Twitter CEO after his deal closes.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Per usual, the brains of every activist organization are short-circuiting and they're freaking out. So they're working overtime by contacting huge brands that spend a lot of advertisement money on Twitter. And they're basically trying to scare them into boycotting Twitter by saying that if they keep buying ads with the company, it will eventually ruin their reputations, tarnish their brands, and associate them with misinformation. Ooh. Or like, maybe with Elon as CEO, these brands will thrive? Has anyone considered that?
Don't do it.
According to the Daily Mail, 26 NGOs and advocacy groups signed a letter expressing concern about the world's richest man's plan. The letter said, Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter will further toxify our information ecosystem and be a direct threat to public safety, especially among those already most vulnerable and marginalized. They warned that by advertising on Twitter, their companies would be associating with a platform amplifying hate, extremism, health misinformation, and conspiracy theorists. Your ad dollars, they said, can either fund Musk's vanity project or hold him accountable. We call on you to demand Musk uphold these basic standards of community trust and safety and to pull your advertising spending from Twitter if they are not.
And the Oscar goes to...
So Elon threw a question out into the open. Who is funding these groups who are working overtime to intimidate brands in an effort to hurt him?
I wonder who it could be.
Well, of course, it's none other than George Soros and former Clinton and Obama staffers.
But who are these two?
Don't you recognize them, Sheriff?
Why, it's Zeb and Zeke.
You see, these leftist activist groups aren't worried about so-called misinformation. That's a gaslighting technique. They're actually worried about the correct information getting out to people. They're worried that they won't be able to control information and news and what American voters can see and say.
You're absolutely right.
There aren't many people that I despise as much as Ray J. I mean, he is like a leech, in my opinion, always holding on to the Kardashians to stay relevant. But he revealed something in a new interview that caught my attention. In a bombshell interview with the Daily Mail, Ray J said he never leaked their sex tape, and in fact, there wasn't a leak at all. He alleges that there was always a deal and a partnership between Kris Jenner, Kim, and him, and that they've all three been partners since the beginning. And after this new storyline on the Kardashians' Hulu show about Kim being scared that he's going to leak more footage, apparently that ticked him off, and he's had enough because he said, "I've sat in the shadows for over 14 years, allowing the Kardashians to use my name, to abuse my name, and make billions of dollars over a decade and a half, talking about a topic I've never really spoken about. Once I pitched the idea to Kim, that's when she jumped on the idea, talked to her mom, and it was out of my hands from there." Do you trust what he's saying and think that the entire sex tape thing was a strategic plan to become famous all along? You know what I realized? This isn't that far-fetched because right around this time, Paris Hilton's sex tape came out and Kim and Kris had a front row seat to how that was a catalyst to a higher level of fame for her since Kim was Paris's assistant. Stop judging me. I thought this next story was cute and fun when an old assistant of Anna Wintour's wrote The Devil Wears Prada about her. Anna told her staff she had absolutely no idea who that assistant even was. Anna had zero recollection of her and therefore wasn't taking the book really seriously, even when it spent several months on the New York Times bestseller list.
By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
But in 2006, when the rights to the book were bought to make a film adaptation, Anna started to pay attention.
Why is no one ready?
She ended up going to a private screening of the movie before it came out to the public, and she was decked out in full Prada. All of this is according to a new biography about Anna Wintour by Amy Odell. Anna's daughter told her that the movie really got her character correct, but Anna's reaction to seeing herself portrayed on film, she said, "I'm so bored by me."
There's some reason that my coffee isn't here. Has she died or something?
We missed you, Benjamina. Won't you sing for us?
I said certified free. 7 days a week.
If Roe v. Wade is overturned and your state decides to make abortion illegal, these mega corporations want to help you kill your baby anyways, which is why they are our Freak of the Week. Amazon, Citigroup, Levi Strauss, Salesforce, Bumble, Yelp, Uber, and Lyft are all willing to pay travel funds so their employees can get abortions in other states that will allow them in a post-Roe America, according to CNN.
The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
Yeah, this sounds like a work trip from hell. The expense report would literally read, work coffee, work lunch, murder. So evil. If you're into having babies and not aborting them, then you'll like this week's episode of The Spillover. Just in time for Mother's Day, I interview Karen Welton, creator of the Pain-Free Birth Instagram, to find out how in the world it is possible for women to not only have a pain-free birth, but enjoy labor. Her stories of being a doula, the techniques and tricks to having a less painful labor, and why you should consider a home birth instead of one in a hospital are really mind-blowing. And I really want you to listen so that you can tell me if you think what Karen says is new age mumbo-jumbo or super valuable information, especially if you're a momservative or about to be one. I have a family announcement for you, so don't go anywhere. First, heart this episode or give a thumbs up depending on where you're watching. Let me know if you think I nailed the reason for the plot against Elon and what the obsession is with those Hydro Flask water bottles. DM this episode also to one of your conservative friends, see if they knew who was funding the hate campaign against Elon, and then hit the save button. So, the conservative family announcement is that I am flying home to Indiana for a friend's wedding and Mother's Day this weekend, and Nick, my boyfriend, is coming with me. He's going to meet my parents for the first time. We've been dating for a year, so I would love to know how long you waited to introduce your significant other to your family. The only thing is, though, since I have to leave today, there won't be an episode on Monday. Politics will be back Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's pop culture without the propaganda every single day. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Politics.
Clearly, Politics is best served visually, but you can also listen to Politics if you just want the audio. Subscribe to us anywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, and more. Also, make sure that if you are listening to the podcast version, you leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget, subscribe to Politics on YouTube.